Yeah.
Right, good evening everybody, thank you for coming. This is DSD Rowley, and he's from the Public Protection Team of Humberside Police, and he's coming to give us a talk on how to protect our vulnerable members of the community. With you.
I'll stand up because I'm quite tall and I'm going to save one of me. Not better. Start off with I apologise. I'm a police officer, not a public speaker, so I'll do my best to go through things. I've just got a few things that I'm here to talk about. The way I think it's the best to do it is if at any point you have a question, just shout up, stick your hand up or something, because otherwise you might end up forgetting and missing things. I'm basically here to talk to you about roughly what we do in our unit and our department. I know you've had some involvement, unfortunately, locally with this, and some of our officers started to work on it. So start off with me. I'm currently an acting detective sergeant based in the Public Protection Team at Market Wheaton, or Protecting Vulnerable People as we're called now. What we basically do is deal with vulnerable people. We try and look after them. We do child protection, we do adult protection, we do everything that's got anyone vulnerable as it will be. We deal with domestic violence, and this kind of work is where we go. We cover the whole of the East Riding, soon to be in April, the whole of the North Bank. When they all move all to Hull, and we just cover everything. There's a team of, I'm just trying to count now, about 12 detectives, 2 detective sergeants and a detective inspector covering this area, and we investigate all of the crime that relations to vulnerable people. I've been a detective for about 9 years or something like that, about 11 years of police service. I've been doing the protecting vulnerable people part for I think about 2 years now. It is one of the most challenging and difficult things that we do, because it involves children and young people and the most vulnerable in society, and a lot of what we do is very important. The main things we get our day-to-day basis are domestic violence. We have a lot of work around domestic violence. There's a figure that's escaped my head now, that a high percentage of murders come from domestic violence. So we take all high-risk domestic violence cases, basically anything that's classed as serious, we will deal with, and then we'll try and put prevention in place and help people after and deal with the after effects of what domestic violence can have. Child investigations, anything in relation to children, we deal with in the family. The case that happened in relation to the counsellor, we would pick up things like that. Anything that's involving anyone in a position of trust, such as a teacher, scout leader, or anything like that that's involved in any child investigation, such as assaults on a child or any kind of abuse on a child, would come to our unit, and we would investigate it. We also deal with something that's massively high profile at the moment, which is called child sexual exploitation. Rotherham is the main thing for that. That's the biggest thing that's come out of it. It's been something that's been going on forever. It's just now been given a name, and now people are rightly, in my opinion, looking at it and looking back at what people have and haven't done. The essence of what we now call child sexual exploitation is young people who are being exploited by any means whatsoever. You know, people who are taken to the cinema, buying drinks or anything like that to gain anything sexual is now been given a name, and we investigate that. We have a dedicated team of officers who work in the East Riding, spending lots and lots of time speaking with young people to check that they're all right and if they've got anything to tell us. Another side of what we do is we have a RMO side, which is a risk management officers, which basically means that we manage and control all sexual and violence offenders in the East Riding of Yorkshire. I obviously can't tell you who's where or where they are, but we will have our officers visit them on sometimes daily, sometimes weekly basis to check that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're not breaching any orders, they're not committing any offences, they're not having any access to children, which is quite a time-consuming thing that we do, but it's definitely worthwhile because we've got to keep an eye on people until, if ever, they are rehabilitated. We get a lot of work in relation to vulnerable adults as well. People of later years, it would be, who perhaps, like I said, can't look after themselves as well as they used to. People who live in care homes. We all go out and see them and see if there's anything that we need to tell, any investigations in relation to a care home or where anyone's vulnerable or people who are taking money off vulnerable people. We get involved in investigations in relation to this. Excuse me. Basically, at the moment, we get our work from every source. It's not just the police. The thing that I do is it's a bit different to other aspects of the police. Your general police work will be something happens somewhere, someone sees it, rings 999 or 101 and waits about 50 minutes for someone to answer to eventually get a long number to then not get a police patrol, and then eventually we will start to investigate it. What will happen with our work is we investigate everything that comes into us because of the nature of the specific nature of what we do. We will still get police calls to the police. People will ring the police and say we've got concerns for a child. We will look into that. Other things where sometimes you might get someone says, I think Billy Smith's doing something wrong. The police might not seem to take any action. It's a bit different with what we do. Depending on what the nature of it is, we do all our work on risk. If someone rings up the police and says, I believe that this child is at risk, it will come through to probably our office. Someone like me will look at it, me or the other sergeant, and we will decide on what we're going to do with that. We are likely to attend or at least speak to someone because we manage risk. That's our day-to-day business on what we do. We get work from schools, a lot of work from schools. If a child goes into school and says, I'm not happy with this, maybe parent or anything, we'll go out and see the child. To the point where if we hear a rumour about a child being unsafe and there's a risk to a child, we'll go out and we'll see the children because of the nature of what we do. It's so important. We've got to get these things right that we will investigate anything that looks to be slightly risky in relation to children or anyone vulnerable. We get reports from Crime Stoppers, we get reports from CEOP, which is the Child Exploitation Online Protection Agency, who will send stuff through to us saying that we think children are at risk on the internet. We will go and see them, we'll go and ask them, and we will investigate as best we possibly can. Members of the public as well, people who just say stuff to the local bobby, the local PCSO who's walking around, will say something to them. Will come through to us if it's got mention of a child or a child protection issue or a vulnerable adult or anyone at risk. It'll probably come through to us and we will go out and investigate it and have a look into to see if there's any substance in that allegation to try and sort it out as best we can. The Rotherham thing, it's not for me to massively talk about in a big way because I'm not part of South Yorkshire Police. It's not fair for me to mention, but I know it's highly in the news and the media. It will come again. It will be homicide's turn at some point. It will be every police force's turn at some point. And the reason being in this is that it's just about the change of the definition. It's not that the police have never done anything or taken anything seriously. It's the fact that as time moves on, definitions change, the way we do our work changes on a daily basis. We have to keep up with the trends of crime, the trends of the way things are reported. There's lots of other reports, and there's I think it's called the Coffee Report and the GMP again, stating that investigations into sexual offences in relation to children and the police. Again, there's a lot of work that comes in, and generally we tend to change the way we do things within the police all the time. Now we're quite tight now on what happens. Things that come in before that we wouldn't necessarily have looked at through lessons learned, things like that, we will now look at. We will go out, we will speak to children, we will do the best that we can and try and get the right results for things. The biggest thing at the moment that I say I'm always going to mention it any time I ever get to speak to anyone because it causes such as a massive issue is what is commonly known as sexting. We have this massive problem in schools. I'm sure I've sat in front of lots of parents here I don't think I've ever spoken to anyone personally in this room, and I hope I don't have to in relation to this. We have a current thing where young people will send intimate pictures of themselves to other people. And it seems to, for some reason, I don't know why, be a trend that's going around with the younger people of today. It causes a lot of work, rightly so. We have to go out, we have to speak to those people. Technically, these young people are creating images of children, indecent images of children. We have to go out and we educate them, we explain that to them. Because once a picture's been taken and it's been passed on to the internet, we're never going to get it back. This is what I say to young, mainly girls, sometimes boys, over and over again. If you take an intimate picture of yourself and you send it online, and you come to me and say, Steve, I want that to go away, I'm never going to be able to stop that. Once it's out there, it's gone forever, it will be distributed. That is something that we get involved in more and more. We're getting involved in a lot of the internet stuff, because a lot of the time they've not done it for you will have someone from somewhere talking to them about this and convincing them to do it. I was asked about prevention in relation to this. I know if I was sat in a meeting having young kids myself and I had a police officer and I didn't know, I would say, well, what can I do to stop this? What can I do to keep my kids safe? The main thing is just listen to them. Kids will generally tell their parents if something's going wrong. And if there's ever any concerns, you just ring us. If there are any serious concerns about anything, we won't turn you away. We won't be annoyed that we've rang or anything like that. We'll look into it. We'll investigate it. Computer-wise, again, on the prevention lines, we're looking at monitoring kids as best you can. The problem is nowadays, my kids especially, they know more about computers than I do. They can hide things better than I can. They can go on Facebook more than I can. And it's just trying to keep up with that as best we can. We struggle with it as police officers as much as parents do. Trying to keep up with technology and offending is incredibly difficult for us, but it's something that we do keep trying to get on top of. I probably should have said at the beginning, one of the things that I can't do is I can't talk about specific ongoing cases because I'm just not allowed. I can talk in general terms about what we do. I can't talk about the specific investigations that we've got going on. Because it's the nature of what we do. I'm not allowed to especially talk about it. We have a lot of good results at court. We try to protect a lot of children, and we try to. And part of the main thing for me is try and put people in prison who have done stuff wrong. To be honest, that's one of my main goals with this. And we do have a lot of work. And I think everybody, the 12 of them are all very dedicated to what they do and work as best they can. In April, everything changes for the police. I think it's April 15th. There'll have been a lot in the papers about it. We're restructuring the way that we're doing things. At that point, become a North Bank Protecting Vulnerable People unit. So my job then would be to cover the whole of East Riding of Yorkshire and the whole of Hull. There will be more of us, so they keep telling me there'll be more of us, and we will be going out to cover a bigger and wider area, and we are going to try and streamline the things that we work. But we will continue to do the investigations as best as we can. The case here, I jump about a bit when I talk. Like I say, I think it was dealt with by another force due to the nature of where the offending happened is. What will generally happen is, in a police investigation, is if something happens here within our area, we will deal with it. If something from here goes somewhere else and something happens to them, that force will deal with it. The involvement that we had and some of my officers had in that one is that we spoke to the victims and witnesses in this, and they obtained the evidence which they then sent down, and obviously which resulted in a substantial prison sentence. This is stuff that we do on a daily basis, to be honest. We do assist, and unfortunately it goes on a lot, more than it should, and we'll continue to carry on working the way we work, working with social services, working with everybody that we possibly can, getting information wherever we can to try and prevent harm to children, vulnerable adults, or anybody who needs our help, basically. I always, like I say, I always ask for help. You know, if you ever got a doubt, especially in my line of work, I appreciate that some people might not want to ring the police on a lot of occasions about a lot of things. I get it, you know, why people don't want to report on certain things. I accept that completely. The one thing that I do say is this line of work in the child protection stuff. If there's ever a concern, just ring. We'll look into it. We'll try and put your mind at rest as best we possibly can. And sometimes these things start as a rumour. We hear a rumour, we speak to someone, we substantiate it up, and the result of this is that an offender goes to prison. And that's just because a member of the public rang in and said, I think this is happening. And it's our job to worry about arrest. Without that bit where someone rings us, we'll never know. We can't be everywhere. A sad state of affairs, there is less of us, less than there ever been, and we can't be everywhere. So we rely heavily on people like yourself to feed us information, intelligence. If that's a case of speaking to your local officer or anything, then do, and just ring in and speak to us. It seems no one's asked any questions yet whatsoever, and I eventually get sick of the sound of my own voice because I hear it all day, every day. I've got a hand up. Go on.
Could you tell us how many officers are going to be in the child protection service? You said we're being reorganised.
Yes.
And so forth. So how many will there be?
I'm going to have to do some mental maths now because what's going to happen is when we reorganise, our child protection, the Protecting Vulnerable People unit will be one unit doing the whole force. It will be split by the Humber River, if I'm honest, with the North Bank and Half Bank. There will be 3 teams. Like I say, I'm going from rough figures of memory here, with about between, I think it's about 18 to 20 officers on team. That's detective constables. There'll be, that's just on the North Bank. I'll talk about the North Bank, so that's what I know. With 2 detective sergeants and a detective inspector. And there'll be 3 teams of that. That's the bit that do what I call the day-to-day core investigation. They're the bits that I'm talking to you about. They're the bits of people that go out to see the children, people that interview the offenders. That doesn't include the risk management officers who I talked about, who go around and see the sexual offenders. That's another team as well. There'll be more of them. And the child sexual exploitation team, there'll also be another team set up for that. So they're going to fragment it off, but in the world that I live in, the work that I do, you're looking at about 18 officers per team. The restructuring of the shifts means that we go on to 6 on, 3 off. What that effectively means is that there will always be 2 teams on. So if you've got 2 lots of 18, you'll have one covering earlies, which is 8 till 5, one coming on at 2 o'clock, covering 2 till 10, and then also what we've not had for a long while, which we're going back to, a dedicated nights cover car as well, where we will go out on nights, and if a scene of a rape or child rape or something like that comes in, we will now have in the future detectives going out to that to do the initial attendance. So they're the rough figures from memory that we've currently got. In the future, it will be from April with the restructure. Okay.
2 things. Would you find that your job would be made harder by people in the community that still support the paedophile on his return and when you in town while they're serving? And basically, what else can we do as a community here to assist you? Obviously, it's eyes and ears and feeding back information. But is there anything else that we can do to help you?
Generally, that's the main thing for us, because the rest of it's for us. You know, we just need to know about it. Once we know about it, then it's our problem. That's our job. That's what we do. In relation to the other side of it, once somebody has served their sentence, they are free to be released. They've done their time. In relation to paedophiles, as you mentioned, most of them have sexual offences prevention order, and that's where we come in with the risk management officer. The general concern in the public, in a big way, and it's a right concern to have, is that someone's a sex offender, they live in this place, it's near a play park, it's near a school, it's near something. They're the concerns. The concerns are that this person will re-offend. More importantly, if we're honest about it, re-offend against either my kids or someone I know. That's everyone's main concern. That's why we manage them. That's why we have these risk management officers. That's why we will. They have gradings of risk. Some of them we will see pretty much every day when they first come out. Sometimes every other day. We have a scheme at the moment that's being rolled out, which is called a buddy tag. It's quite a new thing, but we'll get them to put a tag on so we know where they are. These are the things that we will do. In relation to people supporting the offender as it will be, it's everybody has their own choice of what they want to do. There will be reasons why people want to support people, and there will be reasons why people don't. One thing we don't want is, and this is why I say ring us and we'll sort it, we don't want people to try and sort it themselves because it causes problems. We have had it, not here, but in other places, where people think the police are doing nothing, I'll sort that out. All that happens is the person that thought that is sat in front of me or one of my colleagues answering questions as to why he's done what he's done, and then he becomes a criminal, he or she becomes a criminal as well. The main thing is information. It's what we work on. Without that, we struggle. If you're aware of somebody and you know that it is and there's some concerns, like I say, ring 101, ring the police and let us know. We will look into it. It may seem like we're not, because I get from an outside point of view in why people think the police aren't doing stuff. If someone rings in another world, for example, and says, number 5 is drug dealing, what that person wants is the police to come around, kick the door in, seize all the drugs and put someone in prison for 15 years straight away. It's not as simple as that sometimes. We have to develop that intelligence, develop that and work on it. So when someone rings, just because it's not happened straight away, it doesn't mean we're just not doing anything. We're working on it. Sometimes we may come to a point where there is nothing that we can do, because we're doing everything that we possibly can. But we will always look at it, as it will be. But it is driven by, we've got to know. There is tons of stuff everyone in this room will know that I don't, about various stuff. Probably some people even about the kind of work I do. And I just don't know. If I don't know about it, my lot don't know about it, nothing we can really do. So, just bring the stuff in.
On that topic, I think it's true that people either don't know anything at all. But on the news, there's been a thing called Sarah's Law. I don't know what that is really. Is that related to this matter? Because Sarah Payne down.
Yes. Sarah's Law is a piece of legislation that was brought in after the Sarah Payne case. I think it was Sarah Payne's mum that campaigned quite heavily for this. What it's more mainly around is people in sort of a relationship with somebody. Someone starts a new relationship with somebody. They have a right to know if they've got any offences, especially if this person's got children, that kind of thing. If that person's got they've got a right to know. Is this person a risk to me? Is it a risk to my child? There's another law that's coming in as well called Clare's Law, which is quite new as well, which is the same around domestic violence. If you start a new relationship with a partner, should you have a right to know if that person's been violent to his last partner? This piece of legislation allows you to do that. It allows you to check that if that person is a sex offender under Sarah's Law or a domestic violence perpetrator under Clare's Law. It goes through quite a long and structured process. The reason why is because European Court of Human Rights, which governs everything we do, we have to weigh off the risk against that person's human rights, because everybody has human rights. And at that point it will go to a higher level. And I think it's Assistant Chief Constable, which I think is on lever, who will make the decision whether we disclose. We do disclose. We do go out and tell people. And our risk management officers, who one of the roles they do along with visiting the sex offenders, is they do Sarah and Clare's Law. They will go out to people and say, right, you've asked this question, we're going to disclose this to you. We're going to tell you that this part, your new partner, or this person you're concerned about, has these. They're not going to go into every finite detail about it, but they are going to say, we're making you safe.
So how does that fit with is it the sex offenders register?
Yeah.
Because, and then you talk about the people who monitor the newly released people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just trying to put a picture of how that goes. So they're monitored when they're newly released. How long does that last? And then how comfortable can a community be, for example, that they could know about somebody from the sex offenders register or Sarah's Law?
We won't. There has to be a risk. The sales law, there has to be an identified risk. We have to be careful that we're not just telling people, anyone who wants to know. It's not right that someone can just ring and say, him at number 6, don't like the look of him. Is he a paedophile? And we go, yeah, he is. Because, vigilance, it can cause massive problems. We won't do that. There has to be an identified risk. The sex offenders register is based on offending. Some people are on it for life and will never ever come off it. Other people will be on it for a year. It all depends on the offence that they've committed and the sentence that they have got. If someone's been to prison for a serious offence, such as a rape or an indecency with a child or something like that, and they've got a substantial prison sentence, around like 3 to 5 years above, they are more than likely going to be on it for life, forever. So we will see them forever until they come off. It will get less frequent. We manage the risk, as it will be, as best as we can. We grade people. If someone's an extremely high risk, we'll be with them all the time. If someone's an incredibly low risk, we'll visit them less, it will be. But that's for us to worry about.
So the people on the sex offenders register, you could possibly visit them all their lives.
If they're right,
potentially.
Yeah, but it may be down to once a month or sort of something like that. If someone has downloaded images from the internet, for example, and they've got in trouble for it, and they've got onto the sex offenders register for a long period of time, if after a bit of time they've never done anything wrong, the risk is we'll visit them less. We won't forget about them because we'll monitor these people. We have a special database called Violence and Sexual Offenders Register as well, which we keep them on, which is where the sex offenders register is effectively, and we'll keep them on there because we're not going to lose track of these people. We're going to monitor them. It will become less, but it's all based on risk of offending and stuff like that. And the same as people coming off the register. If someone's on it for not particularly long, then we don't feel they can come off and they perhaps breach some kind of orders, then they will get longer. Because along with registration to a sex offenders register, there is also a sexual offences prevention order called a SOPA, which we can apply for, which prohibits these people from doing certain things. People convicted of this, so we can say that you're not allowed to have any unsupervised contact with somebody under the age of 16, for example. Now we can keep that, we can keep checking on that, and if they breach that, if we find they have done that, we'll breach them, and then they can be back to the court, and the court can decide what to do. So some people can be on it for life, just forever, because and it's rightly so, because it's designed for the most serious of offences. If somebody's done an incredibly serious offence, do we ever want to not know where they are or monitor them? Well, I would say not, and that's what that legislation is there for.
Can you give us just a basic, from what you've seen with the victims, the families and friends, and how it affects them, the offences that you've seen when you've gone to interview after that?
I don't think
because I don't think some people maybe get just how.
I don't think there's a standard answer, if I'm honest. I meet these people. I could never, even for a second, try and empathise because I've not been through anything like that myself. It destroys people's lives effectively. Some people are very strong and didn't deal with things, but it does effectively destroy people's lives. The one thing about the Operation Utri, the Jimmy Savile inquiry, that's the really good thing about it is it's brought people forward to report historic crime. We meet people, historic crime is a lot of what we deal with. We get a lot of reports. I've investigated crimes before I was even born. These happened, and I'm interviewing people about stuff that's happened in the past. You can clearly see the effect it's had on the life at that point. If you get something there and then, you can't really gauge what the effect it's had because it's about future as well. When you meet people who have lived with something for years, we have people at 50, 60 coming forward and saying, when I was 10, this happened. And you can see it's affected their whole life. The way that they live life. Some people, it ruins their life. They get into drugs, they get into alcohol, this kind of stuff, and it does completely ruin their life. Other people go and be really successful, and they manage to put it behind them. Every single case I've ever dealt with is completely individual. The one thing I can say is it does have a massive effect on every victim that I've ever met. I don't think anyone, as a result of anything that in this nature, is ever unaffected by it. It ruins lives, and that's why we do what we do, because we've got to stop this. And the like I say, with the historic things, the nature of it, it's been for so long, and as well the other side of it, because I deal with a lot of suspects, I do a lot of the interviewing side of it. The people who think they've got away with it, to be honest, the one that I can't name it on, the first one I ever dealt with in relation to this kind of work, after 20 years, when I knock on the door, when you eventually get through the year and a half on bail, the numerous interviews, the numerous inquiries and stuff that we've done, he says to me, as I've charged him and he's off to court, when you knocked on my door, I knew what he was there for, and I knew my time was up. Because people do think they've got away with it forever. It's been for so long. But it's unmeasurable, the effect that it will have on people. There is no set answer, unfortunately.
What sort of protection do the victims get when someone that's raped or abused them is being released from prison?
We will. We have specialist victim support officers. We call them IDSVs, or something like that, Independent Domestic Sexual Violence Worker, advocates. That's it. That's where the A comes from. Who work with people through the trial and stuff. When it comes to releasing, we will try as best we can and update people, that this has happened. We will generally we will deal with people through the trial, as it will be. We'll go up to the point, we'll tell them how long they're going to get. As best as we can, and I'll say that as best as we can, we will try and let people know, but it is literally as best as we can, because there's a lot of offences that we deal with, a lot of that. If everybody's protected in relation to the rape stuff, the sexual offences protection orders protect people in that sense. In the same sense, also, if anyone gets gives evidence in any trial or anything like that, someone's released from prison, it's one of my cases, and they get hassled, I say ring me, because what I'll go and do is I'll go and arrest them for harassing my victim, or I'll go or witness intimidation or something like that, and we give them all this advice, as it will be, that they can let us know. We will, and the domestic violence workers and the victim support will work with them a lot through the trial and that kind of thing to try and help them move on. I mean, we can protect them and support them as much as we possibly can. What I always say to people, and I generally try to be as honest as I can with people, is that I'm not going to come and live with you. I'm not going to be there every minute of every day and look after you. However, if you've ever got a problem with any of this, just give us a call and we'll do the best that we can.
There's no mandatory information to the victims when their abuser is being released.
Depends on the offence, once again.
To the community where they live.
Yeah, it depends on the offence, once again. Some cases where we go get involved in multi-agency matters, and if there's a risk, a high risk, we will come and tell people. We will explain that this person's being released, especially if there's a perceived risk to somebody. We'll come and see them. Well, perhaps I know cases where we personally go and visit someone and say this person's being released, but it's all based on a risk factor, as it would be. Look.
Hello. What about those that are underage that have committed offences? Obviously, they're protected. How do you deal with that? How do we as a community deal with that sort of situation?
Well, when you say protected, I assume you mean anonymity, a word I struggle to say. That's just through a court process, basically. We deal with them no differently to how we would adult offenders. It is a bit different in some sense, depending on the victim suspect age relationship. We get a lot of reports of young people where it's a 15, 16-year-old boyfriend and girlfriend engaged in a sexual relationship. Technically, that's illegal. The age of consent is 16. We would deal with that very differently to the way we would deal with perhaps say a 13-year-old and a 20-year-old, for example. It is hard because we have to give to the suspect, because that's what the law says. But in the same sense, we're not going to go around telling people everyone who's done everything. It's a case of, if they are convicted, it's again, sex offenders register. We have young people on the sex offenders register. It's a lower threshold, it's a less amount of time, because the court and the law do understand that young people can make more rash decisions, shall we say. But if it's a serious offence, they will still be on the register. They can, I'm trying to think, go on for life still, dependent on the nature of the offence. Again, we will monitor this. The only difference really is they won't be splashed on the front page of the Holiday Mail saying this person has done this. But again, we won't just go, they're a kid, we're not going to do anything with them. We'll still visit them. We aren't the same people that visit the adults offenders, we'll visit the underage ones as well. So we'll still monitor them. Like I said, it's on us. It's completely on us, because communities get to know about things. They probably get to know about things more than I do and quicker than I do, because people in communities talk quicker than they talk to us, and they all get to know about things. Again, any concerns, if you've heard a rumour about someone and you've got some concerns that they're knocking about another kid, if you ring us, we'll look into it, and that's what we will do. We'll treat it exactly the same.
Okay.
Sergeant, you've described a very heavy workload. No one doubts your and your colleagues' diligence. But how do you prioritise? And how confident can we be in a village where we've already had an incident that a case here would get the amount of attention that it should do?
Cases are balanced on risk, not geographic location. Just because I think what you're alluding to is some of the smaller villages might not get a uniform police attendance as much as the City of Hull. You can wander through the City of Hull and you can bump into a police officer. You come to Home on Spalding, wait a month, you might not see them. I appreciate that. Our work is different. It's about risk. It's about the level of risk. If I have used Beverley, for example, as a big town, I have a low level offence in there, and I have a high level offence in Home on Spalding. My officers are coming to Home on Spalding because it's about risk. We have a high workload, and we do have a high workload, but we prioritise it with risk and risk to the public, basically. So it's all based on risk is what we do. It's my job and my colleagues' job to decide, right, we're doing this and this and this, because that's more important than this. We will get to it, but we do it by that. It's nothing to do with geographic location whatsoever. We go to Withensea before we go to Market Wheaton, because it's the nature of the crime that's come in and the risk to the victim. That's how we work on threat, harm, and risk. That's our day-to-day basis. No matter where it is within the East Riding currently, we'll go and deal with it.
Do you feel you get sufficient support from other support agencies like social services and probation?
We work very closely with social services, and social services work well with us. I mean, we do joint investigations with social services to the point where a lot of my officers, for child protection matters, I will ring a social worker team manager, and they will send a social worker out with my officer, and they will go together to do that investigation. So the support there is good, because we've got them there. Probation do work with us. They feedback lots of information with us as well. I do think the other agencies, they do work well with us. They do talk to us. We are in an information sharing thing now. It has got better, a lot better than it used to be. We now have our decision maker who basically decides on the cases that we do and don't, what we do don't deal with and what we don't deal with. He's now based at County Hull. The reason it's based at County Hull is because it sits within the social services office with social workers, with I think education and health and people like that are in there. So it's the case that a case comes in, he discusses it with 1, 2, 3, 4, we obtain everything we possibly can, and then we give it to the police to go and investigate as thoroughly as we can. So I think we do get the support that we need from social services. They have a massive workload, probably bigger than mine as well, if I'm honest. Because we deal with the case, deal with it, walk away, they get to keep it, they have to still engage with the family and work with them. So, I do think they support us within what we do.
Hi, I'm Victoria Aiken, the Ward Councillor for Dispatch, and just to sort of elaborate on what you just mentioned there about the e-hash and that there is actually a golden number, a telephone number, which is the whole exchange 01482, and it's 395500. And with that number, you get into this hub that the officer is describing, and that then puts you. Then it links into either mental health issues, into police issues, into general health issues, and that's a self-supporting group, so that it makes all the agencies work together. And I think that I'm right in saying that across the country we're actually fairly well leading. We're in that top group of leading authorities that are working closely with services like health and police. So, I've actually been in there this afternoon, and it is very much a proactive team.
Yeah, and I know I've got something, golden number. That's the number that is given to every school, every college, everything. Basically, a child protection issue comes in or something, they ring the golden number and it fires straight through to the place it needs to be, and that's where.
That's not just for you're quite right, it is for the schools and the doctor's surgeries and anybody like that.
Yeah.
But it's also for you. It's for me. It's for us as residents. And you can, if you've got a little bit of a worry about somebody down the street that child's probably not getting the care that it ought to do, your little bit of information then becomes a web of other little bits of information. So maybe the local PCSO might be putting a little bit in on that, and gradually we get this pile of little questions that we then need to get, obviously teams like your own and social services teams to actually investigate even more. And it is actually working exceedingly well, and where we're failing probably is that we're not getting that number out enough. And other parish councils that I've been to with Steve, and it's something I was going to bring up anyway tonight.
Yeah.
Is that, well, I think Steve's going to put it on the minutes and on the notice board, but it's an 01482 number, and it's 395500. And it's one it's been there for a long time. It has been marketed, but it's always difficult to get these things to stick. And there will be, I'm sure, over the next few months, sort of more publicity on it. But particularly as parish councillors, that's important to you guys to spread it out, but also obviously to residents and the general public.
And what to say is, right, sometimes the completely innocuous piece of information that comes through might be just the final little bit that we're missing. And we've not been able to do something because we're just missing something. It's not quite there, it's not quite hitting the threshold, and then something else comes in and we go, right, we can do something now. And that's why, one of the main things when I was asked to come and do this, and I actually remembered to go on this occasion, was that it's to get out to people, talk to us, tell us stuff, ring us and give us information, and we'll work on it as best we can. Anything else from anybody? Look round now. Round us. No, we don't have to.
We're on planning now.
Oh, yeah. At this point, how am I going in case I'm just not solving any problems? But if no one's got anything else, like I say, I'm Steve, I work at the public protection team. Quite happy to speak to anyone that speaks to me or just give us a call.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
and gentlemen, it's 7:30. We're now going to have a talk on the neighbourhood plan. Steve is going to fill us in with the relevant bits of information.
Okay, thank you. Just to give you everybody a bit of background, just over if I get the line out at the correct page. The council, East Riding Council that is, has produced what's called a local plan. And that local plan covers the whole East Riding and it sets out how the East Riding will grow and develop over the next 15 years. And effectively what we have to do is identify how much land we need for new housing developments, for retail, for offices, for jobs, issues such as that, how much land we need to safeguard for open space and playing fields, etc. So it's something that we have to do, and it's something that the council's been preparing for the last 7 years, and we've been through various rounds of consultation. The plan that you may have seen was published at the start of last year now, January 2014, and that's identified 4 housing sites within the village. I do have a few handouts which I can pass around whilst I'm talking, and people can maybe share. I think I've got a dozen copies, so by all means share those between. I'm just passing it back as well. And that basically shows the 4 sites that we're proposing for development. Together those 4 sites equate to approximately 170 houses. Now that's not 170 houses that will be built straight away this year or next year, that's 170 houses over the next 15 years. To put that into context, the village of Moore has had built in the last 15 years 193 houses. So it's around about the same level of development as you may have been used to over the last 15 or so years. The council submitted the plan to the government in April of last year, and the government appointed a planning inspector. And basically it's up to a planning inspector, a bit like the planning application, to look at the plan that we've prepared and consider whether or not it meets the aims of national guidance. So in preparing our plan, we don't really have a blank canvas. We have to follow what national planning policy identifies, and one of the things we have to do is plan to meet the development needs of the East Riding. The public inquiry for the local plan took place in October and November of last year, and one of the issues that caused the inspector some concern was the level of development that we were proposing to some of the villages, some of the larger villages in the East Riding. In Homeland-Spalding-Moor or Homeland-Spalding-Moor was affected by that, as were places like Natherton, Swanland, Southgate, Stamford Bridge. The inspector felt that the policies in our plan were actually too restrictive and were not allowing for development in some of the larger villages like Homeland-Spalding-Moor, reflecting the fact that the village does have, for a village, a good range of facilities by way of doctors, schools, shops, public houses, etc. Compared with many villages in the East Riding, Spalding-Moor does have a good range of facilities. So what the inspector asked was that the council looked again in terms of how we could change the plan to make it sound, and that means to make it able to pass the examination process. And we have to pass the examination process because if we don't, it means that we don't have a plan in place upon which plan applications will be determined, and that means that the council will have far less ability to actually control development, and it will effectively become planning free-for-all in the future. So the reason why Homeland-Spalding-Moor initially was allocated 170 houses was because we basically capped development to no more than 10 houses per year. So over the lifetime of the plan, which is 17 years, that's equated to 170 houses. The inspector felt that was too harsh, so what we're now proposing is to limit the development to effectively a 20% growth in the housing stock. And what that means is that the housing figure that we're now likely to propose, and this is still initial consultation, it hasn't been published for consultation yet, is that the village would then receive a housing figure of 225. So that's an increase of 55 over what we had initially planned and proposed last year. And what the planning inspector has also asked us to look at is if that increase does go ahead, and it's now the planning inspector's decision, not East Riding Council's decision, then we will also have to find a site or a variety of sites to meet that extra 55 houses. So that public inquiry finished in November, on the 18th of November last year. In December, I then wrote to the parish council to explain what had happened through the public inquiry process. And having looked at all the different sites that had been suggested to the council through the local plan process, we identified that from our initial trawl of those sites, our informal officer view is that extending the proposed allocation on Sands Lane was the best way of meeting those 55 houses. Now, if you look at the plan that has been circulated, not only does it show the 4 allocations that we were initially proposing back in January of last year, but you'll also see lots of other sites that are coloured in, that have a colour around the boundary edge but haven't actually been shown in. Those are all the sites that landowners and developers have suggested to the council for development. So there are about 25 sites have been suggested to us, of which we had initially allocated 4. We're still initially or indicatively proposing to allocate 4, but clearly what I'm here to explain today is why the council feels that extending the Sands Lane allocation is the best way forward. In terms of where we go from here, we haven't submitted our changes to the inspector yet. I wrote to the parish council just before Christmas to ask what their view was on that proposed alteration to the plan, and clearly that letter has been publicised and resulted in this meeting here. We will have to send our proposed changes to the planning inspector soon, within the next week or so, and the inspector will then publish the changes to the consultation. So that's when the formal consultation on whatever site is allocated, and it may be an extended Sands Lane site, it may be a completely different site, but the planning inspector will then organise a 6-week consultation. All the comments that you and the parish council may have will go back to the planning inspector, and then the planning inspector will then make the ultimate decision. So all we as East Riding Council can do at this stage is actually suggest to the inspector how we feel that those 55 houses can best be addressed, 55 extra houses can best be addressed within the village. In terms of timescale, the public consultation will take place in March and possibly the first 2 weeks of April of this year. An inspector will then probably take a couple of months to look at all the responses that have come in, to prepare a report, and then let East Riding Council know whether or not the plan is suitable or not. And if it is suitable, it will then be adopted by the council and will then guide development for the next 15 to 16 years. So that's basically where we are. I don't know if the parish council have any concerns. I'm not sure if this is a public meeting for the public to speak as well, but it's up to the chair in terms of where this goes. I don't know how you play things now.
Well, if members of the public have got a question, I think that will be a good time.
That's fine, absolutely.
How does the parish plan with the extra houses deal with like the school and the surgery? I mean, the surgery at the moment, unless you spend half an hour ringing out at 8 o'clock in the morning to try and get an appointment, you've got to wait at least 2 weeks.
Yeah, in terms of the school, there's currently 331 places at the primary school. This is just primary school to begin with.
Yeah.
331 places, and the current roll as of this current academic year is 238.
No, so 283.
These are figures I've been given from our education team.
We've got 283 children there.
Fine, well, I'll check that. But I'm just looking at things that I've been given. 283, did you say?
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's still a surplus of 50 places anyway.
Can I just say,
So-
it might be there might be 50 places extra.
Surplus, yeah.
Surplus, yeah. But there aren't any classrooms.
No.
I work there, Madge is a governor.
Yeah.
So we know that there might be statistically the places there, but there isn't the room.
There isn't the room
There,
at
isn't,
all.
there aren't any empty classrooms at the moment. And you've got 39 children in two classes of 39, which is... So it's just things like that it's so,
Yeah.
you know, I appreciate you're only doing your job, but those figures...
Yeah, well, obviously, in doing my job, I need to speak to relevant people to make sure that
Yes.
we have the facts. So, I mean, whether or not the capacity is 238 or 283,
Yeah.
I'll double check that when I go
Yeah.
back and question that again.
Plus the canteen couldn't cope.
What our education team advise is if the housing figure is 225, that will generate an extra 32 places for the primary school.
Where do we get those figures from?
It's based on real life examples of developments in East Riding. So what we've done is we've looked at developments always in East Riding, the types of residents that have been moving in, how many of those then have children that are primary school age, and then that's factored.
It's just that I can count up 230 odd homes in this village, and I can guarantee I'll get more than 30 odd kids out of that.
Yeah, well remember this is children between the age of 5 and 11. There'll be other children
3
below.
and 11.
Pardon?
3.
Between 3 and
3 and 11.
Well, that's nursery, presumably. I'm just talking about the primary school at the moment.
That is a primary school. The children take children from 3.
Okay, well, I'm not going to talk about
No,
either.
I'm just saying.
But
Three.
clearly the children that aren't at primary school age, there'll be children that are at secondary school as well. So, you know, that's based on real life examples of what's happened in East Riding. And that's what our schools team use to plan for pupil places. Now, if the situation ends up being different, then clearly the council will have to react to that. And there are ways that we can do that. But the figures that I have been given is that if this development takes place and the additional pupils are 32, then there is capacity within the school to accommodate that development. Even if it's at the 283 figure, there is still capacity within the primary schools. In terms of secondary schools, which may not be such an issue for you, but we would expect there to be 32. I know 23 places for the secondary school, which clearly is Market Wheaton in terms of catchment, and there's significant surplus capacity at the Market Wheaton. So, we feel that the schools can accommodate the development that's proposed, and if changes are needed, then they will occur as well. We've got a continuous programme of upgrading the schools where necessary.
But there isn't capacity for any parking near the school. I presume nobody from East Riding has been through the village at school pick up there.
Well, I mean, traffic issues around primary schools are an issue throughout East Riding. I'm sure it's not just this village. But the whole reason behind how we have identified the site's location is also giving people the opportunity to walk to the facilities.
But they don't, and they won't.
Well, we can't make people walk.
No.
We can give them the opportunity by making sure that the sites are as close to the facilities as they possibly can. Now,
Well, we could allocate some parking space as well by taking a strip of land off that HSMC to allow people to park off the road. Just a strip of land off HMSC would...
As with our previous talk, keeping the children safe is our priority in the village.
absolutely. No, I would fully agree with that.
Because with that area there, if we do allocate some land there, all you'll find is people parking in front of people's drives.
Yeah, I mean that's not something that's unreasonable, and it's something that we can take back in terms of taking that up with the developers. I don't think it's something that we can require, because many primary schools do not have parking provision, and on the basis that certainly not the parents anyway, it may well be for the staff. On the basis that those 4 sites are all, in my opinion, within walking distance of the school, then I think all we can do is ask the developer, and if the developer would be willing, I mean, I don't know if you know that landowner, if you're willing to approach them as well, and see whether it's something they would facilitate part of the development. If they do, then I don't think we'll have a problem with that.
Yeah.
And if you're encouraging people to live, and you want people to live near the facilities of the village, which are generally shops and schools, why aren't you prioritising the areas that are earmarked, which are already central?
Yeah.
When you say earmarked, what do you mean by earmarked?
When you've
Sounds
got A,
really
B
long
and
way.
C,
Yeah.
now we're looking at A, Sam's Lane, that's the furthest you can get from the centre of the village.
Yeah,
So I would have thought C or even B.
Or could we...
Well, B will go ahead, won't
Could
it?
we-
But they all would.
Site B has planning permission.
So isn't C...
What we have to do is allocate enough land to meet the housing figure, whether it be 170 or 275. We then can't control how those sites come forward. It is basically when a developer or landowner is willing and ready to bring those sites forward. So yes, it would make sense to say that the sites closest to the centre should be built first, but we have housing targets to meet nationally. We have having to meet nationally as well. So for us to say that A, or in this case C, has to come forward before B, before A, it wouldn't be found acceptable by the inspector.
How set in stone is the Sands Lane site? Can we propose a different site that would be more suitable?
Yeah, as I say, the letter to the Parish Council on the 15th of December was our initial thinking.
Because I've identified a site that hasn't even been earmarked at all, and in fact it already has, via Snowdrop Garth, a road already built ready to access the site, one via Springfield, there's a small alleyway that might be able to develop, and one by Chapel Garth.
So on the plan that shows the sites that haven't been allocated.
That's the only one that I've done.
If you can let me know which number it is, I don't know if
It's not one that's actually been identified by yourselves, but I'm wondering why that one was passed over when there's already road access that's already been made provision of in an earlier time during developments.
Can I just check? So A, B, C and D is already in the plan, is that right?
No, A, B, C and D is in the plan that we submitted to government this time last year, and we haven't been asked to take those out.
No. So you're here to explain that actually you want to add HMS2R and HSM3 to HSMA?
Yes.
Right. So A, B, C and D are already in the plan that's been submitted to government, and it's actually the extension into those two green areas by HSMA that you're here to talk about.
Basically, yes.
Yeah. And then later this evening we're going to hear about a planning application for HSMA, which is already in the plan.
It is.
Yeah. Can you therefore please tell us the criteria by which you came to decide that the 55 should go on HSS3?
Okay. We've had across the Hollies Drive in 2,000 sites suggested to us, of which we're allocating 170. In Homewood Law, we had about 20 sites which we're proposing to allocate for. So clearly there's a lot of sites that we haven't allocated. We could be planning for 60,000 homes if we were to allocate all of those sites, instead of planning for 20,000 homes. So the best way, or the most transparent and open way, to determine which sites are most suitable for allocation is by assessing all the sites against a standard questionnaire, basically. So we've developed a questionnaire which provides about 35 different questions, and effectively it's a bit of a beauty contest in terms of how well the sites perform. So is a site brownfield or greenfield? Is it at risk of flooding? What would the impact be on nature conservation? What would the impact be on listed buildings or conservation area? Is it close to facilities? Is it close to the schools and issues such as that? So by putting all of the sites through that methodology, that questionnaire, we effectively begin to get an idea as to which sites may be more suitable than others for development. We then published those sites of consultation over the last 2 years, and then the feedback that we've had from parish councils and from residents has then helped to inform that assessment process. So, and we have a whole raft of documents on the council's website that shows how all the sites have been scored against those questionnaires.
Sorry, that doesn't answer my question really. I really want to know, out of all the sites that were available, when you were asked to find space for 55, why you came to the conclusion...
Why Sands Lane?
Why Sands Lane?
Well, okay, so clearly Sands Lane was run through that questionnaire process that I've just explained. In terms of all the alternatives, so we've run all the alternative sites through that process. Now, I accept that there are sites. I think the site that the gentleman was referring to was it that one there a few moments ago. Now, in terms of the location of that site, it's better related to the village and it's close to the facilities. It hasn't been suggested to the council. The landowner or the developer has not submitted it. So we can't allocate a site because we have a duty to demonstrate to the planning inspector that the site is what's called deliverable, which means that there's a willing landowner and development is likely to take place over 15 years.
Excuse me, don't you approach the landowner?
No, we don't.
Don't you approach the landowner to see if he's willing to?
There's been more than enough interest in every assessment in East Riding in terms of landowners, developers, planning agents submitting sites to us. I think if we start to approach landowners, we then get on very difficult ground because I don't think that we should be working with landowners in that way.
So is compulsory purchase no longer an option for us?
We wouldn't compulsory purchase any of these sites anywhere in East Riding for housing. These are sites that are owned by private individuals who wish to bring them forward for development, and they've been suggested to us. Coming back to the lady's question in terms of Sands Lane and why we feel that that's a better allocation compared with the alternatives. Many of the alternatives are detached from the main body of the village down towards Howden Road, down near 614. I don't think those are suitable sites, that they're not well related to the village. I certainly wouldn't want my children walking on the A614 to get to the shops or get to the school. So of the sites that have been suggested to us, we feel that Sands Lane has the least impact should development take place. There would need to be some improvements to the infrastructure. The housing infrastructure would need improving, and that would be a requirement should any development take place.
What about the road, Sands Lane? Because it's not a very wide road.
Sands, yeah.
We'll get 2 cars passing in one go.
There are 3 issues on the Sands Lane site. There's the Sands Lane itself, which is wide enough. It meets highway specification.
It's not
going on.
If someone's coming out of Sands Lane into the village and you're going into Sands Lane, there is about that much gap.
Which kind? In front of Selby Road?
Yeah.
So
There is about that gap before you
there
get
are 3 improvements that would be necessary. On Sands Lane itself, the boundary of Sands Lane that's closest to the fields, there's no footpath there at the moment, there's no curb. So that would need a footpath all the way on Sands Lane. But where Sands Lane then connects to Baileywood Lane, it's clearly single track for a short space of time. That would need to be made for 2-way traffic, so that would need to be made good. And the Selby Road junction, it works, but if you were to design a junction, you wouldn't design it in that way from scratch. So one of the things our highways team have asked the council, asked me to look at, is whether or not that can be slightly amended to provide more like 90-degree junction as opposed to the angle junction that it currently is. There's not a great deal of room there, and it may be that can't happen, and therefore the development wouldn't be acceptable. And that's something that we're still looking into at the moment. But those 3 highway improvements would need to be made for any development to be acceptable, and looking at how and if those can be done.
Yeah, because when we did the first development down there, the road was destroyed, and we complained to the council and said that the developers were ruining the road, and the council said that it wasn't, they couldn't say it was the developers, and that it would have to be done over time, and there's still potholes down there from when the first lot of houses was built.
So before any development can happen on Sands Lane, those road improvements need to be made, yes?
The timing will be set out by way of grant of permission.
So the proposal that we're looking at tonight,
yeah,
as a parish council, we should say no, not until those road improvements are made.
The plan application, you mean?
Yes. Is that correct?
That's something that I would recommend that you make back to the plan application, yes. Yeah. Now, the highway officer may say that he can do so much before a particular improvement has been made, but I think it would be sensible to ask for those 3 improvements to be.
But that would be up to the highways department and themselves to do that before we can say yes to any further.
The highways department will respond to the plan application.
Yeah.
And if you make those comments, the case officer of the plan application will then speak to the highway officer to see what his views are, or her views are, on how those how improvements could be facilitated and at what point in the development, either before any development commences or after, say, no more than 2 hours.
But given that there's construction vehicles and things that are going in and out, I'm in the building industry, and there are large trucks that will be in and out all day, every day, until that development is finished. So until that road is widened or remedied, we can't, as a parish council, say, yes, we recommend that goes ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly you can recommend it does go ahead or it doesn't go ahead, but regardless of what your recommendation is, you can say that if it does go ahead, you want X, Y, and Z to happen as part of the development.
You said earlier that you will not compulsory purchase any land for development. How do you square that with the ownership of the land on HSN3?
So I don't. That's
the
a question.
land on HSN3.
HMS3 is owned by a private individual.
You wouldn't. You said earlier that you would not compulsory purchase any land.
No.
So how would you actually take that forward if that site was approved?
All we as a council do is allocate the land for development. That the landowner or a house builder working with the landowner would then submit an application and bring the site forward for development.
And if the landowner did not want to sell the land, what would happen then?
It would remain allocated but undeveloped.
Ah.
But if the landowner isn't willing to sell, then he needs to be telling, or she needs to be telling me now, because the site won't be allocated, because we shouldn't be allocating land that has no prospect of being developed.
Right.
It's been submitted to us, and the planning agent is working to promote the site, so I have no reason to feel that it's not going to come forward. But if there's a change of circumstance, then clearly it will influence the plan as well.
Okay.
Going back to the methodology, part of the reason why you've rejected several other sites, you've used the words unnatural edge to the settlement. Do you consider that any expansion on Sands Lane would be unnatural to the edge of the settlement?
To a certain extent, yes. Yeah, I mean one of the reasons why
was that rejected?
One of the reasons why we've identified Sands Lane is that clearly we have two housing developments on the bottom corner of Sands Lane. The housing scheme, and then we have the nursery site. So there is developments on that side of Sands Lane already.
But obviously you've just said that you would direct us to actually reject the application that's been put in on the greenhouse site.
I didn't say you should reject it. I said that in your response,
yes,
it would seem sensible to make a recommendation. Yes.
Right.
We've actually selected this site down on Sands Lane and stipulating that it's near the centre of the village. It's nowhere near the centre of the village. It couldn't be any further away. And there are other sites within that central piece that are far closer and that would keep the children away from the main road. You're going to actually be sending far more traffic into the village, and Victoria I'll tell you what it's like down there. You've been on Victoria.
What I think it's important though to consider here, and I know as well as all of you in the room, that the centre of the village is nowhere near Sands Lane. But the local authority can only allocate sites that have been put forward as an option. And I've actually asked the question, as many of you are doing here, what about this big patch here that's behind the school and behind the village hall?
Yeah.
But if the owners of that land don't put it forward as an option, then the officers at East Riding can't put it in their local plan.
There are a couple of land owners that are willing to let their land be developed now that they realise that we've got the implementation of this local plan.
And I believe, and that this is going to cause the officers some problems because it should have happened before, but I think then that, and I may be speaking out of turn here, so I might be getting a kicking from behind, but what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that that's flagged up ASAP, and we're pre-consultation actually, aren't we? So if we don't hit it now, then we really have missed the boat. We've nearly missed the boat as it is, but fortunately we have got these stops and checks in place as a process to actually query these things. So if there are landowners that have land in this pocket behind, I'm saying that, and I've no connection to any of it, but if there is something available there, then somebody needs to be given a shove and said, get that up quick, let's be doing about it.
Well, we did actually come to County Hall and have a meeting with planning, didn't we? Myself and Helen came. We had quite an extensive meeting with all these plans in front of us. But there was no way your gentleman would actually shift from this and take on board what we were saying. And we're not repeating anything tonight that hasn't already been repeated to you. And you haven't taken, and that was back in March. It was March the 10th. We came down there and nothing's been taken on board. You've not changed it.
Well, which site do you think is more central than the Sands Lane site?
Anything within this site, can you
give me a number?
East of the village,
Can you give me a
east
number,
of the, let me see, maybe the HM 21 on that there.
21, if you were to walk to the village, you'd have to walk down to the crossroads and all the way to A614. That would be a longer walk to the village.
Yeah, but what we're actually looking at are families here, and they're walking to school. Most of the people, everybody from down there will come in a car and cause chaos.
I parked outside that site last Wednesday. It took me 6 minutes to walk to primary school. So I accept some people will drive, but I also think that a lot of people will walk.
Well, it's
that, but you can't want to try.
Yeah. You walk from your own. Did you go to school or did you go down to the village centre in that Welsh?
I did both.
You would take you longer than 6 minutes to walk down to the village.
Oh, to the village, yeah.
Well, we're talking about the village. I mean, everybody doesn't shop at the school, do they?
No.
And not everybody goes to the school, but the people that are going down to the village, there's no way for them to park.
A lot of these people have children.
approach.
There isn't anywhere for them to plan.
This
Got
is
congestion.
Homer's Body was one of the few villages that has a car park.
It's not a public car park, it actually belongs to the village hall. And sometimes there's only traffic through when things are parked either side of the road for one vehicle to get through.
But I think in terms of the options, the number 21 site, I think that's further from the village centre than the translate site. It's the point that Councillor Aitken was making. There are more central sites, and I'm not here to disagree with that, but they haven't been suggested to us. The sites that we have to work with, I think we've identified the one that is the closest to allow people the opportunity to walk to the town, to the village centre.
They wouldn't walk with young children because the children wouldn't walk all that distance.
As we stand at the moment, all the officers can do is look at the options that are available. So that could be 20, 13, 11, 22, 17. All the ones that are here marked with the red line around it. If we can find some more that are options, then we may be, I don't know whether we can, but I'm presuming that we can actually start putting some red lines around some other bits as well, maybe in that central position. But if we can't, and if that land in the centre doesn't come forward, then maybe definitely part of the consultation has to be, maybe you might say, no, we don't want 2 or 3, but we'd rather have 22 or 11, and give the reasonings, and let's build a case for another part of the village, as opposed to looking at a hypothetical, okay, so you don't like a particular site, okay, so you don't like that, let's find a positive, and find where would be a positive area where the village would support, with through the parish council and through community sort of discussions.
It's like exactly as Victoria set it out. There will be plenty of people in this room who know the owners of these pieces of land. The council won't do it. It's not their job to do it. But if you feel that's right. If you feel that you know someone who has some of these pieces of land, you need to get in touch with them very quickly and get them to contact the forward planning department.
We're only talking about one site now, for 55 houses.
Well, no, it
No. You said earlier that 4 sites had already been to the planning inspectorate.
Yes.
And he made a decision in October, November last year. And it's come back with other recommendations that it's 55 more houses.
Correct.
So you're only looking at one site.
No, the 55 could be provided on more than one site.
It can be provided on more than one site. We're talking about just 55 houses.
Correct.
170 has been allocated already.
Yes.
Yes. So we need a consultation put together by the people in this room now to actually look and get a proper consultation done. Because over the past few years that this local development plan has gone on, there was only about 8 comments went with regards to the sites in almost Spalding Moor. 8 comments. And now we're sat around the table, we need to get collectively together, talk, and get a good consultation together to look at other sites. If you look at early consultations, there were sites 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11. There was accepted early doors. I haven't got the document with us, but there was accepted to deliver houses in the next 5 years. And they've been left behind. But these are some of the sites that maybe under our own consultation we can bring back to the table.
Mr. Chairman, if you want somewhere to put some houses, I have a place where you can put 25 houses. Right in Millard Village.
In Gould?
Millard Village.
Right, okay.
You'll know where, Victoria.
Where you fit?
Well, around the farm. It's then it'll allow me to relocate the farm state.
I think that's a serious suggestion, actually. And it is near. That is Stephen, is it? Is it Stephen?
Yeah.
Because it's near the central part of the village.
It's
22.
No, we're actually
22.
Yeah, we've got 22 and
Right, okay.
that area.
22, if you look on the plan, 22 is the one site we haven't allocated that is closest to the village core. For those that can't see the plan, it's the site that's right by the roundabout on the 8th and it obviously has a brick wall that goes around that site. The site itself is quite controversial from a development perspective, simply because, well, two key reasons. Firstly, it's on the east side of the A614, and I feel the 614 does act as a bit of a barrier, and I personally wouldn't want to live on that side of the A614 and have to cross that road to get into the village. But I think the most important factor is that it's within the grounds of the Grade 2 star listed home hall, and clearly you then have the Grade 1 church at Church Hill as well in the foreground, also in the background to the site. So I've had to sit down with the conservation officer, and he doesn't feel that 22 would be suitable for development because of the impacts it would have on both the home hall and the church as well, both being listed buildings.
So does that mean I can't update and move my farmstead, or does it mean that I can apply for permission to put a large building up there to keep my livestock in, which needs refurbishing?
It's getting quite a detailed issue, that.
Yeah, well, you know what I mean. Which do you want?
I'm sure there are things that you can do, but you have to be very careful because of the proximity of those two listed buildings. And clearly,
I know about the listed buildings, you don't need to tell me.
Yeah.
On a more technical issue, in the next 16 years, there's private residents build houses in the gardens, wherever it happens to be. Do those then get knocked off that figure?
No. No.
So we could be looking at 300-400 houses over that 16 years?
No, there would be more than 225, you're absolutely correct. It wouldn't be anywhere near 300-400.
But you said over the past 15 years, you've looked at roughly around 170 homes over the past 15 years. So if you add that on top of the other 230 odd homes that you've come up with, then it starts to get a lot of houses.
I mean, this is a plan from 1999, which was prepared by the old Boothby Borough Council, and that allocated. I think these sites have all been developed now. I think that was Hockey Builder built about 10 years ago. Peter Ward's been in there. Plus, that's a site there next to HSM HSMC. So most of those 190 houses that were built over the last 15 years will have been built on those 4 sites that were allocated 15 years ago. But you're absolutely right, there will have been some individual infill plots and others elsewhere as well, and that will still happen too. But I would imagine that you'd be talking about maybe an extra 10 or 20, not hundreds, by any stretch of imagination. I mean, if you walk around the village, there aren't that many opportunities for infill developments.
If you're saying cities already earmarked, when is that for then? Is there a time scale for that? I mean, could you not? No, I'm saying.
It's really up to the landowner or developer. I mean, of those 4 sites, Peter Ward had permission on HSMB, I understand. So, whether or not, I don't know what his timescales are for bringing it forward, but it has a live planning consent, so the chances are that will happen, say, within the next 3 years or so. There is no planning permission on C or D, so they could be vacant for the next 10, 15 years.
So the only reason A is coming up is because somebody has actually applied.
Yes.
Somebody's seen that.
None of the other sites have.
No, that's exactly right.
Other than B,
Other than B. And B's already gone ahead.
And D has actually had planning permission on there before.
But not being used.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
That's next to the planning commission.
One of the issues that the planning officers have to take into consideration, and the inspector takes into serious consideration, is the intention to develop a plot that's allocated. And it's, at the end of the day, the plots that are allocated, everybody hopes will be coming forward in reasonable time, because there are plots around the county, and some in Hampshire I know, where they've been on the plan and they've sat there for, was it 15 years? And we've allocated that in the hope that that village is going to get this extra 50, 60, 70 houses, and the developer said, time's not right, money's not good, I'm not going to do it. And that stops the whole process then. And that, but at the same time, we as as a local authority or even as residents, cannot suddenly tell a developer, you must do it now, because market forces, you know, there's so many issues that the developer has to take into consideration as well. So that there isn't a finite science to it.
So if we know the person who owns C as the parish council, do we go approach him and say, have you thought about applying for planning on this one?
Not really as the parish council, but individual people. They can
people.
encourage him, shall we say, but that's all.
Yeah.
It's exactly as Victoria
Parish
was
council
saying.
has done it previously.
Now, can I sort of throw another little sort of comment into the pot, particularly while we've got Stephen here and colleague Simon, and that is the neighbourhood plan. And I know this has been brought to the parish council, and I've actually asked to join us tonight Linda Aram, who is actually the chairman of the North Cape Parish Council. And I did have a quick word with Peter about this, and so if you don't have any questions, well, that's fine. Now, but Linda, as chairman of North Cape Parish Council, they have, as a parish council, already started the process of doing a neighbourhood plan. And I'm not terribly up to date with this, but I'm sure that I'll be corrected if I'm wrong. But what happens is we have the local plan, which is the county-wide plan, but each parish can actually formulate its own neighbourhood plan. And that, I don't know, it has to be done through the parish council, does it? Yeah. So the parish council becomes the key to this, and they consult, and you can actually, I think there are a few grants about and things like that to help finance it and to go through this process. And when you then come up with what you, as a specific community, want to do within your specific parish, so you can go an awful lot more in depth, you can do an awful lot more consultation than the local authority has to do as a county-wide thing, to actually then start looking and have that consultation with landowners right in the centre and say, we within our neighbourhood plan would like to actually suggest something a bit different to what East Riding is suggesting in theirs. And when that's gone through the right process, and that has to go to scrutiny as well, doesn't it? It goes to planning inspectorate just the same. But once that's been accepted, then that actually overrides Stephen's plan.
Well, I think it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't override the East Riding local plan.
Right.
It
Incorporated in.
It is over and above the local plan. So you can put forward, if the East Riding local plan puts forward allocations and stuff, the local neighbourhood plan can put forward additional development.
It can change.
Village
It
if
can
it wishes.
change the allocations.
It can do,
Yes.
but it's not in terms of reducing it.
No,
there are some
You still
town councils.
you still got to take that number of houses, but you can put them in a different field.
You can have more, but not less.
Not less.
Not less.
There's some neighbourhood plans that have been begun to be drawn together by town and parish councils because they thought that it was a process to stop things happening, which it's not. It's not a process to stop things happening, but it is a process to, in the future, make things happen more according to what your neighbourhood wants.
Yeah. And there is additional cash come with it.
There is DCLG money that comes to help you do that, but it is not, you need to understand that it is something which you as a community have to drive forward, and you as a community will have to also put resources into. And the East Riding has a role in terms of supporting you to do that, but it is over and above the local plan. And I'm not sure if it's terribly constructive right at this moment to confuse the two together. I think you're far better off to come up with the allocation that sorts out the issue at the moment.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, frankly, if it doesn't fall into the timescales of the planning inspector, he'll make the decision for you. But if you can come up with You know, if you can persuade the guy who's got better bits of land to come forward with, and then do that quick.
Quick.
You've been very non-committal about it, and mentioned a couple of times. Have we still got time to do that?
You've got to get on with things, though. You've got to be quick about it.
Have we still got time to identify other bits of land that you would then consider?
We're talking days, not weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, we're Wednesday now. We need to be sending out those changes to the planning inspector.
Is that
I did it by the end of this week.
Is that the only piece of land what is really
Then
allocated?
there's no consultation.
No, the inspector will publish the plan for consultation, the changes for consultation in March, but we need to get them to him in a timescale that allows for the consultation to be prepared.
To come back to my question, is that the only piece of land that you are sure that will be developed?
So which piece of land?
On Sands Lane.
On Sands Lane.
No. I mean, we have
you
we
other
have
places?
we have 20 we have 20 options in the village.
No, but you said you had them to people to allocate them. You said you couldn't compulsory purchase them. Have you other owners who was willing to develop that?
Yes. Yeah. We have 25 sites have been suggested to us, and we could allocate any one of those 25 sites.
So you'll pick Sands Lane?
We have, for all the reasons I've explained previously.
Some of the other sites are in fairly bizarre locations. It has to be
You know, a lot of the sites on the
although they might be available.
right down Howden Road on the east side of the way to the industrial estate. So you know, those for me are not suitable sites for in terms of their relationship to the village.
Could you? I know it says why 20 was rejected, but for school, that would be a lot better than the Sunday.
There's muchness between Sands Lane and number 20. Number 20 would be strange. It's extended to Open Countryside rather in a rather strange fashion.
But Sands Lane does that. There's nothing behind where that location is. That is Open Countryside. Exactly the same.
Yeah, I think the only difference being that Sands Lane is filling in the gap between the affordable housing scheme and the nursery sites. Whereas number 20 would extend.
I mean, it's now on the back foot because the affordable housing is a controversial thing.
Oh, I know.
That's the problem. That's what
the suggestion isn't putting anything in because there's no planning permission on what we're not calling a brownfield site. But everyone else in the village will agree.
A hasn't got five.
No, it doesn't. No,
and just use the word filling in.
Yeah. I don't know.
We're talking about a foregone conclusion here, or West Northwest.
Well, it's not a foregone conclusion, but it's a site that we've already published for allocation in our plan. So it's a site that, as far as I'm concerned, will be allocated.
The research, just step back a little bit. The reason that we've come back to you with a revised figure for the proposed development over the next 17 years for Homewood Spalding Road is because the planning inspector has required us to do that. And he's going to run this consultation, or the consultation responses go back to him. And I would absolutely encourage you to make all the comments to him that you've been making to us, and to express all the concerns that you've been expressing to us, make them to him, because we felt that the plan that we put forward before was a good one. And it's because he's required us to alter it that we've had to come back to you.
Yeah.
All right? So it isn't our plot to do this. It's his, and it's his plot in conjunction with and in compliance with NPPF, the National Planning Policy Framework. So, you know, we've had to do this. We haven't chosen to do it. And we'll be making consultation responses to it. You should make consultation responses to it. The parish council should make consultation responses to it. Anybody that wants to respond to that should so do. Now, whether that response and that weight of opinion sways him or not is up to him to make his mind up on. But we have to put forward options which he can consider. And the ones that we can put forward have to be deliverable, so they have to be ones that have actually been put forward by developers or landowners in the past for consideration.
So if A is still part of the consultation that will run in February and March, So the planning inspector hasn't signed off A as part of the plan yet, has he?
He hasn't signed it off, but A, as it currently exists, will not be published for consultation. Or we will publish in March the proposed changes to the plan.
Right.
Yeah. So people have the opportunity to comment on A, and the inspector will look at all responses that people have made to A, and decide and decide whether or not he feels.
I would urge people to look at that planning application on A, because I believe there are a number of inaccuracies in the engineer's report that's been put in, and it's important that you write into the planning officer before the end of the month and make your observation, because there are lots of inaccuracies in there, and those inaccuracies will be taken as the truth, and they're not correct.
So is it 3 or 2R that you added to the planning inspector plan?
What we're suggesting is 3 and about half of 2R. So basically it would, at the moment HSMA is a bit of a L shape, so it would basically square off the A side. It wouldn't include all the nurses. The plan here, if that makes it. That's how I suggested it.
So then thinking about the planning application that we're going to comment on shortly, should we be bearing in mind the fact that that space next to it is coming up to be allocated as well? Yeah. And therefore that does change some of the assumptions that are in the planning application currently going through to A.
That's an interesting one, because at the moment the proposal to increase A hasn't been published by the council. This is in effect an informal pre-consultation discussion that we're having. If the council keeps the Sands Lane allocation as we're suggesting here and increases it, then that becomes more formal, and as part of that plan application, the planning officer will have to consider the site as a whole and see how the application relates to the allocation.
So could I be as bold as to suggest that the timing of the planning application is slightly questionable then in terms of getting it through before HSM 3 then comes up?
Anyone can submit an application on any piece of land at any point in time, so there's nothing we can...
But if it was being submitted after the planning inspector made his decision, we would be considering it in light of 3, but because 3 hasn't actually been approved yet, we're not
if 3 is published, so say for argument's sake 3 is published as being part of the allocation, that will probably be made public sometime next month. That will then inform the decision that's made on that plan application, if it's published before the application is determined.
Okay. So when will it, we've got a consultation period until the end of the month on the planning application on A.
Yeah.
So will that timing work then?
I don't know what time scale is. I would imagine that they will be looking at the planning committee probably in March time. So the chances are that wherever the additional allocations within the village, the chances are that will be public knowledge that the case officer can then use before the application is determined.
I think what my neighbour's referring to there is that part of the planning application for A is that Sands Lane is not widened.
And that's difficult at the moment because I think the application is for 30 houses.
39?
30. 30.
39.
Yeah.
It would be helpful, to get some correct facts here this evening.
Sorry, I've got my consultation response there that says it's 30.
Well, I have the planning application.
So it may well have changed, and if it's changed, that's fine. My understanding is that the HSMA site, I don't want to talk about the applications, I didn't deal with those, and it's not my role, but the site that's allocated on the plan application, my understanding is that doesn't need, for that to happen, it doesn't need the extent of highway improvements as what the bigger allocation would need.
But the point, what my neighbour's trying to say here is that if the permission is given for 39 houses on site A and no widening is done to Sands Lane, and then the application goes in for site 3, which will be more than 39 houses because it's a larger site, then it will be too late to widen Sands Lane.
It would be entirely correct for you as an individual or the parish council as a parish council to raise that concern and to alert, you know, to do your own bit in terms of saying, you're considering this application prematurely. If you're going to put this site forward as a bigger site, it should be considered as a whole. And you should do that.
I will.
Do that.
I will.
Can I just say that it seemed to me that nobody's considering the infrastructure.
Nope.
Right? You're going ahead with it. You know, the plans are put in, developers want the choice of where they're going to put the homes and everything like that. Users driving council, you're trying to keep everybody happy. It sounded off some of your comments that it was already, I take the point, that is this already a done deal? And then it'll go to a higher authority. But just from experience with a town councillor from Cambridge until recently, moving up here, right, that we found the only way dealing with, you know, shall we say, the larger council was to bypass them altogether, and we went straight through to the minister who was dealing with it, Mr. Pickles, and he just blew the lot out of the water. Right? And it can be done if you go to the right source. You know, at the end of the day, and no disrespect to you, but I would have thought would have got your facts more up to date, because everything you've got here tonight is different in numbers than what's been circulating to the public.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, but you know, you're professional. It doesn't give a good impression of what's coming.
Well, as I said, the school will, I will check, and if plan application's changed since I was consulted, then that's something to take into account. I mean, in terms of Mr. Pickles, the planning inspector who's looking at this plan right now has been appointed by Mr. Pickles.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm just saying.
So
I'm just saying that we shouldn't take a foregone conclusion, because you're actually saying that, well, we don't really need to like the roads widening because it's not possible to do it and things like that. That should be, you know, one of the major functions. The school isn't never going to be big enough. You've got the experience of we've given you tonight. It's doctor's surgery, they can't cope with anything like, you know, anything like that. You're picking an area which got a very terrible corner to come out of at one end, right, into a road that narrows that you can't even get two vehicles past on a good day, and you put a white van on that road, and we've got chaos with traffic, and you're talking about having that as a main thoroughfare through to feed off these estates. I don't know where you go or where you sit or where you observe what's going on, because what's happening is not coming from you.
Well, believe me, we don't just sit in an office and dream these things up. Everything that is in this plan that has been discussed with all the relevant bodies within the council, whether it be the highway team, the drainage teams, the education teams. We've been out on site, we've done site surveys, we've been through no end of consultations upon which people such as yourselves and parish council have had the opportunity to comment. And all that is fed into the melting point and preparing the plan.
Yeah, but you give us basically a week. We've basically got a week to come up with you what you want to hear. Because you said it's got to be in.
Well, at the end of the day, I didn't. The council, each Train Council, didn't even need to let the parish council know what was happening in terms of, it's out of trying to engage with the parish council residents that we sent, I sent a letter back in December to bring you completely, up to date, out in the open in terms of what has happened in the examination process and what our initial thinking is. We could have just identified the site and given that to the inspector without even trying to engage in terms of
there were quite a lot of parish councils that actually attended the inquiry and sat through the various bits of the inquiry where they were dealing with their parishes. Pocklington did so. I sat there through some of the inquiry dealing with various bits of Driffield, and you could have been there and making those comments at that time had you so wished to do so. So we're faced with something that we do have to take forward within the timescale which is now set by the planning inspector. And we have, we've been doing this, as Steve said. I've been involved as a council portfolio holder carry for this for about 7 years now. And we've been consulting time after time after time. And these pieces of land which you rightly say you would like to see developed now because they're better placed in the village, they're going to come forward at any time over that period of time. These landowners could have been persuaded to bring that land forward at any time over that period of time.
So are you basically saying that the parish council did address that?
Of buildings, where do the sites come from? Who actually submits them to you?
The developers are landowners.
Anybody.
So it's the developers that go around to see the landowners, is it, to ask them if they're interested? Right.
Yes.
Or landowners can just do it themselves in that building pilot and say, would you be interested in this? If I'd be interested in putting this forward. And
there might be bits of land that the council owns, I don't know if it owns any here, but it does in other places where it's put forward bits of land, but they've been considered through exactly the same methodology as anybody else's are. And some of those will be rejected.
So you're making assumptions on Sands Lane that the bit of 3 will be developed because nobody's approached the landowner as yet then?
No, the landowner has submitted the site to us. That's why we considered it, because it's been submitted to the council.
Is that when the other development went through then for the affordable houses?
I don't know the timing upon which it was submitted.
There was a degree of fatigue in this village, particularly in Sands Lane, about us trying to fight planning applications, and people have spent their own money in employing experts and so forth, and we all feel that it was just a complete and utter waste of time and money because it was fait accompli before it ever reached this forum.
Yeah, well, the development has to take place somewhere. We have absolutely no choice over that. The government's national planning policy that we have to follow and what planning applications need to be determined against has a presumption in favour of development. But the starting point to determine applications now is to approve unless there's a very good reason why it should be refused. So there's a very supportive national planning system that we have to work within. So to say that you want to prevent development, it's just unrealistic. So if that's the way that you approach things, I'm not surprised that you feel that you have no influence, because we have to provide for development. Our role is to make sure it takes place in the most appropriate location.
And the danger of us not having sufficient land allocated for development looking forward, we're obliged to have 5-year land supply, because if we don't have that, then anybody can put forward any patch of land and say, well, the reason that you should actually approve this is because there is no land supply in the East Riding that will satisfy this need. And you would get really odd pieces of land coming forward, which you would have no defence against.
Would Yorkshire Water have to increase the capacity of the drainage system? Because over Christmas, down Sands Lane, Cherry Drive, we've had them out pumping the drain because the pumping station on Hawthorne can't cope. Well, then that goes into the pumping station into the water. So surely, wherever you build in the village, you're going to have to increase the capacity on the drainage, the sewage, everything.
The local plan and the proposals that are coming forward through the local plan inform Yorkshire Water, and then in their capital plans as they go forward, they will, they'll cater for that.
Well, they didn't last time when they built the social housing over the road.
They must have judged that to be within the capacity of the system that we've got. Now, and we are not the experts.
No, I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying is that part of well, surely that would have to be part of any plan, of any housing.
The drainage is considered both at the plan making level and then again in far more detail at the plan application stage. So we work very closely with Yorkshire Water and the internal drainage boards and the council's drainage team and the environment agency.
Well, can I make a point there? You mentioned the internal drainage board. The Market Wheaton board, the relevant one, was completely against the affordable housing scheme. It pointed out the risk of flooding in the future, and again, it was completely ignored. Yeah. And the social housing scheme relies on septic tanks. So does that mean that the new developments, either one or both of them, will also rely on non-mains drainage?
Not that I'm aware of, no. No, as far as I'm aware that they will be main drain.
There isn't a main drain past that part of HSS M3. There is no main drain. We live on that part, and we have one of these septic tanks. So there's no. We have that because there's no sewage pipe for us to be connected to.
Yeah, well, as part of any development, then that infrastructure may be put in, which may allow you to have a connection to. That is something that the developer will need to take into account. account. It's not an issue that Yorkshire Water have raised to us in discussing these sites with them.
Things like the water scenarios, this drainage, sewage, those sort of things. All the East Riding can do is go to consultation with the relevant authority, i.e. Yorkshire Water. Yorkshire Water are the expert. If they say, yes, it's fine, there's nothing that the officers at East Yorkshire can do to say you're wrong, because the officers at East Yorkshire don't have the qualification or the knowledge to actually contradict what the engineers of Yorkshire Water have to say. Same as with the drainage board or with the environment agency or whatever they are.
I mean, the vast majority of the sites that we allocate in this plan are greenfield sites on the edge of settlements that will not currently be served by electricity or gas or by mains drainage, and those connections will have to be put in by the developers, to enable the development to take place. And then they pay Yorkshire Water for the connection charge, etc.
I'll repeat my urge to you, which is, when the consultation comes out, then respond to it. And those responses go to the planning inspector, and at the end of the day, it's him that makes the actual final decision.
So what's the time element on that? When do these letters need to be in?
Well, you'll get to know when the consultation commences, and then there'll be a 6-week period where those will go back in.
So it's not before the end of this week when you're going to submit your plans?
No, but there are two processes here. We have to submit to the planning inspector what we believe are going to be our changes. We need to be submitting those in the next few days. We did ask, the parish council have had my letter now for 5-6 weeks, and we asked a response by the start of last week. So we've extended as much as possible to enable this meeting to take place. If you want your views to feed into this process, we really need something from you tomorrow, Friday at the very, very latest. I know it's tight, but these are the timescales that we have to work within.
But can you realistically run so if somebody came up with a site that's not marked on here at all, could you realistically run it through that questionnaire that you alluded to an hour ago in order to incorporate that into changes if it came back more favourable than number 3? In reality, don't give us false expectations.
No, today I've doing anything as it is. I'm not here to defend anything. I'm here to try and explain what the process is. Running a site through methodology isn't that lengthy a process. So yes, that could be done within a matter of hours. I've already been around the sites last week, so I'm very familiar with them. The difficulty we have is whether or not at this stage of the process the inspector is going to want to consider new sites. He may not.
So has he already seen 3 then? Is that what you're saying?
The inspector has seen all the sites. No, the inspector has seen the 4 allocations that we proposed last year.
Yes.
He hasn't seen the new allocation because we haven't submitted to him yet.
And it's also, if any developers who have now got rejected sites, a lot of them came to that planning inquiry and sat around the table and argued for their sites which were rejected.
Yeah. And they will also be arguing that it is too late in the process for the council to be submitting new sites to the inspector. They will say that their site has been submitted whenever 3-4 years ago, it's been through consultation, people have had the opportunity to come to the examination process, so they will cry foul if new sites are submitted. Now, I don't really care for the developer. If we can do something that people want us to do, we'll try and do our very best. But it's in the hands of the inspector now. In terms of timescales, we have to submit these changes to the inspector within a matter of days. The inspector will then have about a month or so organising a consultation. The public consultation will start probably, and it's up to him, not me, for 6 weeks in early March. And that is when the formal consultation takes place. That's when you all need to be making representations to the planning inspectors to support or object to whatever is in the final plan.
And we will make sure, via Victoria and Charlie and other people like that, and the parish council, that you know when that consultation is.
So you've got basically 2 days to find out who owns these pieces of land in the centre, if that's what you prefer, and to persuade them to ring, to contact the forward planning department and say that they're interested. They can then, just by email, send a copy to... They've got to indicate that they're prepared for this land to be developed. If they're not prepared for it to be developed, then they're wasting the time. They've got to indicate that. They've got to then send just a small map that identifies it, and then an email to say that they're putting it forward. And that's then it's up to the forward planning department to put that, add it to the map, and then that goes to the inspector.
Well,
2 days.
I don't know if you have any residents of Snowdrop Garth or Chapel Fields here tonight, but they may have a completely different view on allocation.
Oh yeah, that's very well done, yes. Oh yeah.
You know, that's what we've got to consider, and something the parish council has to consider too.
Yeah.
By the same token, if the majority of people here tonight agreed that, say, HMS 20 was a better site than the San Clair one, would you take that on board as a decision?
We'd have to take into account, yes. The question is, could we justify that to the planning inspector? Can we convince the planning inspector that number 20 is a better site by way of the impact on the landscape than number 3?
Well, I'm just worried on the time scale that 2 days. I don't think things are going to happen in 2 days, and obviously all the people here tonight are interested in it. So I think things will be tracking now.
Well, I can throw a piece of land forward for a start off now.
In that central piece?
On Back Lane, yes.
In that central piece?
I can't.
Well, you need to get on with the rest of it, isn't it?
Not a big piece. Yeah. Just that piece there. And that would then open up that there, which is locked in because it's open an entrance.
Right. Would you know the landowner from that side?
I do, yes.
Well, if you contact them, get him to come tomorrow morning.
I will do, yes.
Yeah. And then email, you've got email facilities.
Yeah.
Ring Steve up, down Thursday, and email Matt.
Yeah.
Drawing, and then you email the lecturer.
Yeah.
I mean,
so that will then open up that centre place.
If you go to the inspector, we'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Then it can be consulted on.
Yeah.
All right, does that help anyway?
Thank you.
Clear as mud, is it?
Can you just let us know the phone number? If anybody wants to make representation about land, what phone number there is? Is it on the website?
Yeah, I mean, the parish clerk has my details, but I mean, email address is best because we need something in writing as a plan, which is Stephen. This is my email address. Stephen with PH. Hunt, 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 at eastriding.gov.uk.
Right. Could you tell me how many houses you do propose putting down Sands Lane in total?
Sands Lane was just under 90, sorry, just under 100. 96.
Is that including the 39 you've already got?
It includes the A sites, which has the plan application pending, plus the potential to extend the allocation, yes.
So there's 90 out of how many?
Out of 225.
50% down Sands Lane.
Not quite, but...
Can I just say that we didn't really answer the question that was put earlier by a gentleman down there about how the doctor's surgery is going to go?
Yeah, we obviously been in touch with the NHS for all the preparation of planning all assessments in the East Riding. Yeah, no disagreement in terms of the doctor's surgery is near capacity, and once 225 houses are built, it will exceed capacity. My understanding is that the surgery has been looking for some time at ways it can improve the service by way of either expansion, probably not because the site is quite constrained, therefore looking at the potential for a new site.
Sounds lame.
There's one on Sands
Well, the traffic from the surgery on Sands Lane would be probably equal to the housing estate. But so yes, the NHS are looking at how they can facilitate an improvement to the surgery. That is likely to involve the need for a new surgery, which clearly isn't needed straight away, but it would be needed during the period of the plan to accommodate the development. And they are working with the NHS to seek to obtain funding for that. Now, it could well be that if you have a willing landowner, he may well wish to provide for the surgery as part of a development site. That's happened in Poppington Market Wheaton in the last year, where new doctor surgeries have been provided on the back of new homes being provided.
Is contributions such as Section 106 part of the local plan?
Yeah.
Is that identified there, that expectation?
All of the sites in the village have to provide 25% affordable housing, which is for people who live in the village in the first instance who cannot afford a house on the open market. So that would generally be young people who may be living with parents now and want to get a house of their own, making families. They'll also have to be contribution towards play facilities. We usually expect a children's play site to be on the site itself, so that's an equipped play area with the slides and spinning chickens, issues like that. And then a developer will usually pay a financial contribution to upgrading the adult playing facilities. So in this instance, most likely it would go towards the football club and the cricket club and the sport club in the centre of the village. And then anything else that's necessary to make the development happen. So in the case of Sands Lane, should it be allocated, then the 106 would require those highway improvements that I talked about right at the start.
Well, the 106 by the middle of summer, I'm saying tongue-in-cheek, will vanish.
Yeah.
That will vanish. It's been on the go. It was the old Section 52 in the previous and 106. It will be replaced what we call SIL, Multi-Infrastructure Levy. North Cave, if they get their plan sorted out before any housing applications come forward, they'll get 25% of that SIL money. The parish council without a neighbourhood plan will get, I don't know, it's 10% or is it 15% of that SIL. So you get an extra 10% of additional money. So I do feel that developers will feel that things will be tighter for them when the SIL comes in than under the 106. So a lot of developers are putting their applications forward now to avoid this extra money going out with SIL. But the SIL should be a flexible thing. When we do put it forward, it should be flexible. If it's a buoyant market, it should be fairly high. If the market is slow and sluggish, it should be a bit lower to encourage development. But what the council are looking for is a steady build of housing throughout the planned period. Not everything at once, or none at all. It needs steady growth, and I think all settlements like to see a steady growth, not a growth all at once.
In the case of, you mentioned play parks and things that are being built on site, is it the planning office that's responsible for enforcing that and making sure those are built? Because that wasn't built with the affordable housing that's already on Sands Lane.
No, the developer paid the financial contribution instead. The site was deemed not large enough to provide for a children's play area.
But we have no other sites large enough, apparently, to put a play area.
At the moment, you don't. I mean, I would certainly HSMC would be big enough. I would be surprised if something wasn't also possible on B and certainly A if it was extended into the current form.
But that's only if those sites are developed.
Well, indeed, but we can't ask the developer to provide for open space if they're not developing sites.
But I see on the application for this evening, for the 39 homes, there's no allocation for that. And it's supposed to be of 11 homes and over, is that correct?
It's an outline application, isn't it? So at this stage, they don't need to show a detailed layout and plan. It's just a principle. They're trying to seek and establish a principle of development. Clearly, if there was a bigger allocation on that site, then it opens up greater possibilities to make sure that provision is made on the site.
Okay. Right, if there's no more questions for Stephen, I want to thank him for coming on and entertaining us for
Good evening, and I'm sure you'll get some correspondence. Thank you.
Thank you.
They're everywhere. They're right into the road. It might be tomorrow.
Right. We'll go through the minutes of the last meeting, and then we're going to go on to planning. Because I think we've got one or two interested people for the planning. So the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of the 12th, 2014. Have anybody got any matters arising? Someone sign them off as a true and accurate record. All those in favour? Does anyone have a declaration of interest, pecuniary or non-pecuniary, of any items on this agenda? Oh, little Dalton. Okay. Right, so we're going to just jump bits of the agenda, and we're going to go on to the planning applications. We're going to start with the application for the erection of 39 dwellings. Means of access to be considered are Sands Lane Nursery, Sands Lane Hall, Falling Mall.
I think just take our lead from Mr. Hunt in his earlier comments. We basically don't like it, and anything that goes on down Sands Lane, there has to be improvements to the road, the drainage and everything else before we can really accept anything being built down there.
Any other comments?
Sewers are about shot and the problems at the top end of Sands Lane and down at the bottom end of Sands Lane, which affects Cherry, Cherry Crescent, Close, some houses on Selby Road, so it's yeah, as well.
The public station of Hawthorne, it floods like that.
Right up there, yeah. Because believe it or not, even though the land goes uphill, that is the way that the drains go.
Any more comments? Then are we going to make a comment that we don't approve? We wish to not to approve because of the application.
I would say we don't, so if that everybody else in favour of that. Can we say we don't approve or we wouldn't wish for it to go ahead? Not as things are at that end of the village.
Well, I think we need to make a point that road improvements need to be made as recommended.
When the parish council objected to the allocation on Sands Lane at the local plan draft stage, you also said that it was going to affect the village because everybody would drive down to the village and cause more chaos than exists now with parking and traffic and all the business at school, which was mentioned obviously earlier. Those are two other issues that you brought up quite strongly at that point.
I think we need to reiterate that.
Yeah.
And the doctor's surgery as well.
And the services also,
Just general infrastructure.
But I think we need to make a particular point about the road improvements first.
Which one of our ward councillors sits on the planning?
Nigel.
Right, so would we need someone to speak at our side of things at the meeting, or Victoria's done it before at the planning meeting?
Victoria is not involved in terms of on the
like to move to ask the
Yeah.
So are we all in favour then that we're going to object to the development, especially until improvements are made to the infrastructure, Sansley itself? Yeah, all in favour? Against?
Abstaining.
Abstaining.
You're sorry, you're abstaining.
That's what I meant.
So that was 10.
When I say parish councils, if there are residents that have specific things that they like to bring to my attention, then I'll be happy to receive those as well. Yes, councillor.Aitken at eastriding.gov.
I'm just going to be too regular, but can I say something at that point? Steve Hunt said that or it was generally said that if you have the 39 houses, then they don't have to put the infrastructure in. So what you've said about the infrastructure isn't going to carry any weight, as far as I can sort of think of that. Am I right with that?
Yeah.
This is your problem. They're only doing little sections, so they're a bit sneaky.
I think the point Ian was making was that it's almost presumptive to put this application without the knowledge of what potentially might happen. I think that's part of what I'm saying.
Yeah, but the East Riding Council have already said 39 houses that won't affect the infrastructure. They don't have to do road and that improvement.
But if we comment that we want to see that happen, we have to make that comment.
Yeah, you can make the comment, but what I'm saying is that they've already decided that they don't have to do it, unfortunately.
Well, they've recommended, nobody's made a decision.
No, but they're recommending that they don't have to do any improvements to the road and that because it's only 39 houses.
But the important point is that we make our comments.
Yes, you must make your comments, but I'm just saying
we vote for or
what's going to
against,
happen.
or we abstain, we make our comments because we cannot decide this matter.
No.
They are interested in our comments, and that is the overriding issue tonight. We make comments.
Yeah.
Right, so moving on to the next application then, the erection of an anaerobic digester with macerator, separator tower, solid screener, processing building, etc. At Welland Bridge for Mr. Neil Priest. Somebody previously had up on this one, is that right? I was reading the email when I eating sandwiches at the time, so I kind of did digest my sandwich or what I'm doing. Those have actually been answered. Right. Basically, Helen and I went down to Bottoms at St. Ross, Melbourne, last Friday, to have a look at one. I've got to say, I was mightily impressed. No smell. I think it's a fantastic way of getting rid of the slurry from 6,000 pigs, although I don't think Neil's going to get pigs in to do that. But it just seemed like a fantastic thing to me. Helen being a fan of a business angle to it, obviously makes sense to run one of these. And it's again, it's like a wind turbine without the actual turbine. The digester produces methane gas, which runs an engine which turns the generator.
Could I just ask, Mr. Chairman, I don't know whether Neil wants to answer this question, what sort of excess electricity will this digester produce?
I don't know if you want me to just give a very brief explanation of what a digester is.
Yeah.
It's not to be confused with composting.
Yeah.
But first off, it happens in a sealed concrete tank. It's often called a concrete cow. So you feed crops, manures, whatever in at one end, warm it up, the body temperature, and the bacteria create the methane gas, which is then burnt in an engine, which generates electricity. I'm proposing 125 kilowatts of electricity, which is enough for 250 houses or more, some of which will be used on site, but the majority will be exported. Unlike wind turbines and solar panels, the digester runs 24 hours a day, so it's constant, so the energy is always there. The manure that goes in is a smelly product. The digester enriches that and concentrates it, and when it comes out the other end, it's virtually odorless, which, unless you've actually seen it, I don't think you really believe that. And that's, when it comes out, it's a valuable fertiliser, even more useful than the manure that went in the first place. I'm only a very small digester. There'll be approximately 3 tractor and trailer loads of manures, etc., going in a week, aside from harvest. So it's a very low impact. So I don't know if that's...
So you put 3 loads of pig manure in per week?
Well, it'll be manures or energy crops, maize.
So that's what you're proposing, what, 30 tonne?
It'll be
30 tonne a
40
week?
tonnes a week.
Of a mix?
Of what's going to come in, the energy crops will probably be harvested at harvest time and stored on site and used.
And what percentage can you have to put energy crop as against manure?
It's, well, the initial proposal is 50-50. I mean, it'll get used.
And you say you're going to be connected to the grid, and so much is going to go back into the grid?
Yeah, the majority would be exported onto the grid. Yeah.
Have you got a grid connection sorted?
Yeah, so I inquired for a 250 kilowatt connection, and it was 1.5 million. But for 125, it's 20,000. So that's...
Just say that again.
23,000 it's worked out at.
But what, you applied for what?
250 kilowatts.
Kilowatts.
Yeah. 1.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
Expansion's not really going to be an option.
Also, Mr. Chairman, can I ask, why was Spalding Parish Council so interested in this?
Because I think they're just the other side of the phone, basically.
I think the composters, their local composters have...
Is there any noise from it? No noise from it.
The one at Robertson is 4 times larger than the one being supporting. And the generator is in a building, and we were stood outside, 6 of us having a conversation, and it didn't go at all. It was very quiet.
And you're not looking to expand this?
Well, like I say,
further on.
the grid connection...
Yeah. No.
I haven't got a spare money, so no.
6 months.
Yeah.
So, any more questions for Neil? No?
Well, one thing I just wanted to say, I'm sure he is aware of this, he is very close to the river. Very, very close to the river. Significant drainage body of water.
We're talking about pollution.
Well, I think one of the practical comments, I think we should make comments. Right? Because we do no harm with comments, this is what we're here for. I think that we must tell partners we need reassurance that it is not going to close that river. I think for me, it's very close to the river. The second comment I've got is, and I would like these comments to go to the planners. It would help Neil's cause and it would help our cause for the village. Is that, as you know, this area's got a lot of composting. We're all aware that composters have caused problems with falling to their everywhere. So if we drive through Holmes Falling Moor, we go past Sollington composters, we go past the new mushroom complex coming up, we've got Prospect House, the Workhouse Farm, we've got Gallimore, we've got Shaw's, and we've also got Duck Nest. And we've got to have an reassurance for the immunity of this village that this site, one, does not is not ugly and unsightly. And secondly, it doesn't expand rapidly into something that was innocuous in the first place, but becomes a large industrialised complex. Now, I don't believe that's Neil's intention at all, but I think it's something that we should say and give our concerns to the planners, and then the planners can deal with them, and if they're reassured, then that will be fine. Those are my comments.
Am I allowed to comment? You want to answer or? Pollution, Spaldington, I think, asked questions about the water courses and the pollution, and the agent has responded. I don't know if you've read the response, have you? To the questions?
Yes.
And the proximity to the drains, etc. The Environment Agency had initially came to see the site, and as far as they were concerned, they're fully aware of the composters in the area, and Simon Kane is his name. He was more than happy from a pollution point of view. The digester, the process of digesting the manures makes or reduces the amount of pollution that it can cause by about 50%. So the process is actually taking something which is potentially more polluting into something that's less polluting.
Will there be storage on site before it hits the digester itself?
Well, energy crops,
yeah,
which are normal farm crops, will be stored on site. The intention is to
but not the manure.
Import the manures on a regular basis. And the expansion point of view, you erect the concrete tank, and that is it, and you have the engine, and that dictates the size. The grid connection, like I said, is the major thing, and it would involve extra planning. It wouldn't be something I'm just going to do.
So, as a visual thing, is it from the final band, your current band?
Yes, the maximum height is 4 metres, I think, for the gas store. It's visually very unobtrusive.
Will you be able to see it from the road, Neil, then, as we go around?
If you've got very, very keen eyesight, just peering around the corner of the shed, and lights. I've got pictures if you want to have a look at one.
I think that your answers are good, and I think that but I think we would be responsible body if we didn't answer the questions and make those comments. I think that's where we are with this.
Could I make one comment, Chair? That is what happens when they blow up.
What blows up?
When they're sat on top of a hill and everything's down into the river, and they have been known to blow up. Because of the acid to them and everything, rots it all off. And there has been recently this happening to these digesters. They're a very, very good system. I just asked a question.
As I understand, there's 2 explosions, methane gas. If you're mixing it with oxygen, that can potentially be explosive. Some digesters introduce oxygen to control the hydrogen sulfide, which this digester doesn't. Let you use ferric phosphate, so that reduces the explosion risk. Digesters that run on food waste, because the food waste is variable and not consistent, means that they can get indigestion effectively, and they overflow. So that's one issue. Now, the tank is partially submerged. It's a concrete tank, and the digester, which is inside it, is like a thick porridge. So if you just let the door out, it's not going to. It doesn't run. It won't run to the river. It won't run as far as the door. Effectively, it's a thick soup. So as far as that's concerned, it's not really a big
comments on that. I mean, I'm sure this is all feasible. I think we do need to just ask the question and make the point. I think, you know, the fact that you do need to acknowledge your idea that we would sort of take extra precautions. I think that will be a reasonable thing to say. And the other thing is that our programme agriculture down in Shropshire, they've got a digester. Well, it uses food waste, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And there are 2 explosions there.
Sorry, it's not an explosion, it's indigestion incidents.
Well, it blew the place apart, and their back, which runs into the River Severn, was polluted in both cases, and they're enormous explosions. But that's probably down to the food waste.
Yeah.
So to reiterate, I think we should acknowledge it stands near the river, and we should acknowledge that there could be a spill, and that special precautions are taken to acknowledge that fact.
That indicated a little bit of landscaping, a nice big man going around the site.
Yes, it's all right.
It looks like an extra bund.
There's a bund which is, I think, a foot tall around the edge of the site, which, if there is a spill, will contain any runoff.
Can you plan on growing all your energy crops?
Well, just this week spoken to neighbouring farmers and asked them their opinions on my digester, and they've both been interested in growing some crops for me as part of their rotation.
But what's about the shouldn't it be sort of main not putting into it?
It's a 50-50.
Isn't it, to change farmyard manure into something which is a lot more nutritious, nutrients rich.
I mean, I don't want to have to grow a crop if I don't have to.
No. I mean, farmyard manure is free, isn't it?
Yeah, it has less energy though than an energy crop, so you need a lot more of it. And
yeah, you mix some energy crop with it, don't you?
Yeah. Now, Gordon will know that a lot of farmers have a blackgrass problem, which is becoming resistant to herbicides. So it's becoming more and more expensive to deal with and less effective. And one way of dealing with that is to harvest the crop before the seeds are mature. You can feed it through a digester, and the digester will neutralise those seeds. And hopefully that's a win-win solution for everyone.
So which crop would you be growing on that field with the blackgrass problem then?
Well, a farmer who has grown a crop and is infested with blackgrass, you can harvest that crop, take it away from him, take his seeds away and neutralise them.
So he gets nothing off that field then?
Well, no, I mean, he effectively have to spray it off the ground up to kill the blackgrass before it's mature anyway, and he won't get a crop then. But it's I will be able to offer him some financial reward to take away his waste. And then you can grow subsequent crops and harvest, because the seeds are still in the soil and they keep growing for years and years.
Yeah. So I mean the main point is you want to be able to help farmers get rid of some of their farmyard manure, put it into your digester, mix it with some energy crops, and produce a digestate at the end which is very rich in nutrients and easy to spread on the land and plough in.
And producing renewable electricity as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So then, if you put 30 tonne per week in, what do you get out?
The digester reduced the volume by about 10%.
We've only reduced by 10%.
Yeah. But the odour is 100% or 90% right now.
The stuff that was put out of the digester at Rollins smelled to me like it's just like opening a bag of compost from a supermarket. It's just like that. Slightly, there was a smell there, but nothing noxious.
So then, obviously, what you produce out of that, will you be able to get rid of all of that on your own land?
Thereabouts, yeah, pretty much. Although the neighbours will be more than happy to take it from me. Yeah.
Any more questions for him? Any more comments? Right. Taking into account the comments that planning application?
As long as, like you said, what Gordon.
Those in favour then, please.
Is that everybody, yeah?
Yep. Thank you. The next application is the erection of a two-storey extension to the front at 141 Back Lane, North Bolton North. Tony Draper.
I have looked at the plan of that, and they're filling in a bit of the front, aren't they, into the garage. I just wondered if there's a sort of room for how many cars to get off the road. And they're filling in a bit of... Filling in this square here, whereas when you look down, this area here would have been off the road into the garage. There probably would be room for 2 cars there. They filled them in. I'm just wondering, if this house has got 2 cars, one doesn't have to be in the garage, one doesn't park there. We don't want anybody parking out on the street, do we?
Back Lane.
Yeah.
Cross down the lane. Back in on the lane.
Yeah, but you don't really want cars parked on the road if you can help it, yeah.
Do they even look at the highway supermarkets? They usually don't they?
Yeah,
Look at that.
they didn't say anything. There was no comments, it was just a thought I had.
Show it to the Not all to do.
Have we any other comments? Are we in favour of the final application then? All those in favour? No. Yeah. Thank you. The erection of a dwelling following the demolition of existing stables at land north of 55 High Street, almost Spalding North, for Nigel Turner. That's a full planning application. Full planning commission. Points?
I have an email from a resident questioning whether or not the drive in there is actually a shared drive, and whether or not the resident that shares that drive has been consulted, or whether or not it's even possible to build there, because the actual structure itself is outside the development line for the village. I don't know if we need to go back and have a look at maps and see if that's correct or... because it's dual access right, can't be blocked or impeded as well.
Dual access with
the neighbouring property, the property towards the front.
That's the house.
It goes into the field
Right.
and back.
Yeah.
There's then access down the side of the drive into the field as well.
But the actual structure itself that will be put up, I believe, is outside the development line, or at least that's the information I've got.
This was when the caravan thing was discussed, wasn't it? And that roadway is the access to the field, and it can't be blocked. But I think also I remember seeing a plan at the time of the field in the local caravan park, and the development line is close into those houses, so that needs to be checked to see where the development line is. But my memory is that the occupants of that house said that the caravan park would be a great irritation to him in his house.
it would overlook.
You remember, Peter? And this one, that's a good idea, building another house between you and it then. Because I would say that that house there is very close to the caravan development. That's, perhaps the striking thing. It's only small, I know, but it doesn't make any difference. People still live in it.
Yeah, I do remember. And it is right adjacent to the boundary of the caravan park.
I think in the development line,
I think it intersects the site itself. I think it's actually, the structure itself is actually above that line.
Yeah, possibly. It doesn't show the development line on this.
You can obviously make a comment on your reply about that, saying you did check that
Yes,
it's Similarly, the shared access, that can be checked as well by plan.
So any other comments we'd like to make apart from the possibility of shared access and whether it's within or without the development?
And it's very close to the
Well, he commented on that against the caravan sanctuary, but the fact that he's doing it there can... I don't think it works either way, does it?
You used all these points against the caravan, the access and everything.
Yes, but then it would have to be the caravan park that's objected to the house being so close.
There were no comments on the public access. Not even the neighbours, because the next door neighbours, because they are looking out over the fields and the caravan park and then the caravan is like there. Permanent dwelling there now.
Yeah.
We can make those comments.
Yes, certainly.
Are you going to support it? No comments or object or as a
I
general?
don't think it's a lot of council until
You make those comments, surely there are our comments at the moment.
And
So you have no comments to make other than
The comments that were made, yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to cover the planning decisions? Are they exactly as per the agenda? The three of them,
okay.
and they've all been granted. The two for Lavaks on High Street and the William Peachman one.
Our resolution
I
does that.
suggest you do the accounts and then be sort of conscious at the time and then based on
Right.
this, we can-
Yeah, we are pushing the time now. So we'll move on to accounts.
Yeah, basically as per the agenda, the amount for Peter Wiles was actually less than quoted there. It's £336.60. The amount for Steve Deere and the Clark as per. Plus there's an invoice coming for the parish online subs, which is the mapping tool that you subscribe to, and that's £67.20. And that actually has proved useful when we made the application for the Heritage Board. Without Peter being able to log on and give me the maps, it would have cost quite a bit of money to have got proper maps to meet that. So that has been useful.
I'm still open to showing anyone how to get onto this website. I will make no copy.
Can you send us a link to that?
It's not a link, it's just parish online, but you need the code specific to the council. Mr. Caravan.
I'll send you. Drop me a note and I'll send you in if you like. So they'll be formally approved.
Right, so could we approve the accounts, please? Yeah.
And just one quick note on the precept. I've had the formal tax base now, and a tax band D payer, will be paying 63 pence a year less because of the parish council precept, because of the change in the tax base. So it'll be dropping by 2.13%.
Not spend it all.
I don't know where you want to go from here, whether you want to go back or go forward. At the beginning of the meeting, I can if you wish.
No, I don't think there's anything desperate on matters arising. I'm just having a quick look through.
I'll happily. Oh yes, of course, yeah. On the,
unless anybody's got anything particular on matters arising, we will. I can't see anything desperate that needs discussing.
Could we have an update on the pedestrian crossing, please?
Yeah, I sent an email today on that arrived today from the traffic people, basically saying that it was on the list for 2014-15, but it didn't make the priority list. will go forward onto the 2015-16 list, and it depends on where it falls basically within the priorities. Everybody in the East Riding is saying we want a crossing, please spend X amount of money in our parish, and they, I don't know how they score them, but they score them, and it goes in a list, and they decide we can spend that amount of money, and the ones above the line get their crossings, the ones below the line down. I think that's kind of the way it works. Yeah, maybe. And Victoria has met with a resident, Marlene Tennyson, who's willing to take up the cudgel of starting a petition and so on. And she's going to put something in the newsletter, the Grapevine, about that, and hopefully that will mean that we can send more information to the East Riding and badger them. If there's anything else in the matters riding, when I check back through it, I'll send an email out just to update. But it is basically updates, it's not. Yeah.
Has there been anything on the Meadowfield housing situation?
No, we're waiting for feedback again. I've reminded them, and the person that needs to get back to me hasn't yet. And just as Ian's just mentioned here, the litter picking, again I had an email today, which I think I sent on to you, saying that the litter picking has happened from, basically from the roundabout down to Loch Lane, I think it was, and hopefully that's improved it.
Yeah.
So
that's on that one. It just goes to show that you can get these things.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of getting persistence.
Yeah. They've been nagged and they've come through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Talking of nagging, I see that there's a few signs gone up at Baileywood for the flooded corner. Do we know what's happening there?
Yeah, well, we don't, but we've done as much as we can.
It's back. It's back. It's in back today.
Basically, I reported it before Christmas and said to Highways, we need it done before Christmas, because if we get cold weather over Christmas, it's going to cause accidents and so forth. They came out. I got an email from the drainage people at Highways saying it wasn't a simple pump out job; it was a dig out job, as he called it.
So it's a block drain.
It's a blockage that can't be pumped out; it has to be dug out. And so they went back in again, and I've been keeping an eye on it as I've been coming to the village and reported it with pictures 3 or 4 times. And then the flood signs appeared at some point. So
they had a digger there a few days.
Did they? Oh, right.
They've actually dug it out and left the pile of water they dug out on the side of the road with the highways stuff on the side of the road, and it's as flooded as bad as it is again tonight. Because I live in Cherry Drive, so I have to come through that flood every day.
I'll write something. I don't know what else the parish council can do. The East Riding, whose job it is to put it right, know all about it.
Yeah, I reported it on their website as well.
At least 2 of their agencies, the highways and the drainage, know about it. They've been out to look at it. And I don't know what else we can do as a parish council. But I will get back to them again.
If you want to get some photographs and let me, I'll join the push.
Yeah, okay.
So if the lady is already... Do you have any photographs of it in the mess that it's in since they started to sort it out? No, I don't have a... If somebody emails me that...
People will email you send it to me and I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
As a report at the last meeting, Victoria, we had a chap who'd been riding a bike in the dark, and the car came around, and he moved out to go around the puddle,
right,
and nearly took this guy out who was going the opposite way in the bush, and shot him.
Yeah.
It's a safety issue.
Yeah. More pushing we can give now, so United Front and all that.
He was more concerned about his grandkids and that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're going on to... No, nothing on that.
Right. Heritage Project.
Can I just say before Gordon, Gordon has sent me a heritage report, and I've got a goodies bag for you all with information, and I've included the heritage in there, Gordon, if that's okay.
I don't need to say anything.
No. And also in this information is the non-technical summary for Gallimore, as I emailed you about. and there's the latest register of electors, and there's also a letter written to Peter from the people at the bottom of Church View, you know, the roundabout that they've been writing to the parish council about. There's a letter that's only just arrived, and it's sent to Victoria with a copy to Pete, so I'll put that in and I'll put it on the next agenda, so I'll give that to everybody at the end of the meeting.
Is that coming today?
Well, I only got it yesterday. It's dated the 9th of January, but I only got it yesterday. And it's sent to you at Beverley.
But make sure that I keep that on there, because that's not really well.
Yeah. I'll drop you a note.
Conservation issues. Village in Bloom, not so much report. The two of the beds that we have, the problem with bugs. They're going to be planted on Friday afternoon. We've got some roses to go in there. That's it from Village in Bloom. Reports, Alan. John.
I was just reminded that it's 3 months since Steve received a letter from Peter Robinson about the planning issues at Workhouse Town, and that there was going to be a planning application received by the end of October. That's 3 months ago. And we just said that we'd just be kept in the loop by East Midlands Council. So it's just a reminder about that, Steve.
I'll drop him a note saying where was it. Thank you.
No. Dennis?
No.
No.
Lights 1 and 2 at Bushview and Dr. Surgery, they're on all day and all night. That's it.
Just the village notice boards.
Yeah, that's on the list. Peter and myself are meeting with Steve Deere, and that's one of the jobs that we're going to talk to him about.
Two biggest issues. One has been the encroachment of the fence just near the rail trail, and also the remember when Northern Power Grid came and chopped all the trees down and the main line messed with the rail trail. Neither of which have been sorted as yet. There's supposed to be compensation coming from National Power Grid. So I've been chasing that since Christmas, and Patrick Warren, who's Commissioner Access Manager, has replied to me today saying that the hometown meeting with National Power Grid over the early February, Northern Power Grid now, early February, and with reference to the fence, there are discussions going on with the landowner, but as yet no decision has been taken on the appropriate course of action.
Fence, sorry.
That's a fence.
Somebody told me there's a gate being smashed down there.
All right. Well, no, this is a fence that's encroaching that the landowner has put far too close to. Well, that's
Is that one of what's said there?
That's the one. So, still nothing to report on either of them, but apart from the fact that they're still active.
Okay. Correspondence.
Yeah, there's one new thing, if I may first. Graham Cole, who lives on Old Lee, has written again, I think I copied you on part of the correspondence, about these trees outside 22 Old Lee, and the parish council made the decision not to do anything about it. And the latest thing he has is clearly we're not very happy with the parish council decision, but asked that the matter, together with the recent photos, and there's various photos he sent me, be raised at tonight's meeting, and if deemed necessary, perhaps a site visit could be arranged. And I've said about £100 being quoted to tighten them up if the parish council wished. And he says a figure of £100 does not seem an inordinate amount of money to be spent on this work, particularly when we've been made aware that the parish council have undertaken lopping of trees in the past. So he's basically saying the fact that the parish council has said no, those are the trees, and he says they're too near the telephone wires, and he's kind of objecting to your decision, if you like.
Could we tell him, would he like to pay £100? That would be
They are parish council trees, and
No,
I think the point is made.
we had looked at it, our man said that they were okay.
He said that they're getting close to the wires, but he doesn't seem to think there's a problem.
Yeah. If Graham wanted to pay for it, that would be a way around it.
And BT basically say they would put wires through a tree, no matter what, so actually the reach of the tree doesn't make any difference.
No. I mean, I can either write back on your behalf and say sorry, or if you feel I'm happy to go and meet with the man, if one or two people want to go down, it's entirely up to yourself.
Why don't you just say to them that we've taken advantage of the advice from BT and they've said there's no danger to the lines, and I mean that's obviously what they're bothered about.
What is the original complaint?
The tree's too tall.
And it's
stopping light
it's
from
overhanging the road.
Blocking light to
And it's sort of, that's one, it's one particular tree which is sort of built on a slope which is sort of at an angle. So the growth is actually impeding that direction rather than being in the straight angle.
Well, we have actually had correspondence from other residents and all three saying, please don't touch the tree.
Well, I don't know the correspondence, we've had a conversation,
That's
sorry,
not
didn't we?
Yeah.
I don't see it. Well, did we answer that time?
Yeah. One said cut it down, the other said not cut it down. So we thought we'd better push out, don't get away.
Could I just say that the Joel committee took some branches off some trees on the playing fields because residents were complaining about light. So they carried them.
So there's, I'm sure we put this forward, but why would Peter not be able to go and just lop a few branches out of it?
Peter's not a tree man.
Did you have his chainsaw?
You said that he shouldn't be using a chainsaw because he hasn't been training.
Right, so he would have to, would he? Would he have to go off the ground?
You're on your ropes around.
We asked him himself yet to look at it, and he said it didn't need trimming. And quite honestly, I think that my own feeling would be about a tree, because it doesn't need trimming, it's invisible now.
Well, you've had two experts, and you've had British Telecom and our arborist. Both said it's fine. It isn't dangerous to any property, so.
So I'll let you say, British Telecom also, right, that's fine. Okay, just the correspondence. Well, the correspondence, I copied the standards board information. I don't know whether that needs to be discussed, but that was just for information. The Quality Council information, that's straightforward, and I've emailed you about that, and at some point we'll be getting information about how to apply for accreditation in the future. The accreditation we've now got lasts until next January, so we're still in quality status until at least then. And then there was a letter from Alec Wilde, an email that I sent on to you with your agendas, and he was asking for a letter to be put into the newsletter. And I think that's the discussion. It's a long 2-page letter that I put into your agendas.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, can we just go back to the standards board report? Whereas obviously Councillor Williamson was accused of what she said, and obviously it's been vindicated now. I mean, it still goes back to the question that she asked Sharon, where she got her, why did she see that the parish council was not transparent? But I must like to say thanks to Sharon, because of Sharon's video, it showed that we are a transparent council. But I still need to think that Sharon needs to retract that or reply to it. Now that has been vindicated.
Just on that, so it wasn't Sharon Smith who confirmed with.
No, sorry, Sharon, like I said, thank Sharon. No, but what I'm saying is that Sharon accused the parish council of not being transparent in her address to be in parish, when she was trying to be elected as parish councillor. And she was asked to reply, and she said she would reply back in writing. And now this has come about and she hasn't replied. So either I think she needs to retract what she said, or she'll reply.
Well, I didn't see it quite that she accused
I don't think it was an accusation. I
I
think
think
it was
just
more.
Yeah, more of a general statement that it's a good idea for all public bodies to be transparent. That's what I thought the way she put that. So I thought it was really quite, at least a straightforward, generalised statement, and not an accusation that we aren't being transparent. No.
But that's the way transparency was really the issue with the complaint. The complaint, I think, was more aimed at a statement was made that could have affected the outcome of an election, because the other person wasn't addressed in that by-election. It was just the one person. I think that was more what we...
No, it was an accusation of the parish council of not being transparent.
No, that was Sharon's. You're talking about a complaint here, but that complaint is very separate to anything that Sharon put in her pre-election mandate.
Well, yes and no. They said Councillor Williamson had said the candidate's address referred to the parish council as not being transparent enough. So it is. And that's what Sharon had said.
Is Sharon allowed to reply?
Well, have I been asked once, Sharon?
I did say I would do it in writing.
Yeah.
However, I was also advised not to get into a debate about it, so I chose not to. But as you brought it up again, I will reply now. And in response to Helen saying that it inferred that the parish council wasn't transparent enough, the election statement actually said that you could be more transparent. Now, the fact that how I wrote it and how it seems to have been interpreted are entirely different, I think that's up to the individual. I'm not going to retract it, and I thought we'd moved on from there. Personally speaking, I felt it was an attack on me, to embarrass me, belittle me, and maybe even put me off, if you like, of the election itself. It nearly did that, by the way, and I think that nothing else should be said about the matter.
So you're not going to inform us as to how we can become more transparent?
Just continue the way that you are doing.
I've been on the council now almost 4 years. Nothing's changed.
That's changed.
Yeah, well...
No.
That came in.
People, public, the general public are still allowed to come to council meetings. They have it all the time. We've been open and transparent.
Yes.
The fact that now maybe a dozen or two people watch that on Facebook doesn't make us more transparent.
Makes us more
It's
accessible.
just to another dozen people that could have turned up to a meeting. I would still like to know how we can become more transparent. And just by switching a machine on in a corner does not make us transparent or more transparent.
It holds us to account to more people.
Not everybody can come to a meeting with that as
for whatever
well.
reason.
The minutes are published, that holds us account to everyone in the parish. So, we'll move on. We'll go back to the letter from Ali. Has everyone read this?
Yep.
Do we feel that it warrants being published in... Was it published in the Grapevine?
Yeah.
Yeah, should be published with a reply from the council.
Right.
Have you got room in this next edition?
Well, Emily's here. We haven't got to a draft stage yet, and we're still quite early, really. But we can always jiggle things around and put things in, can't we?
There's plenty of room for it, yeah.
Yeah.
Could you just see, Steve chose to print that one off for us to see, but you don't print them all for us to see, do you?
Alex said something that he wanted, did he? I need to read it again. Well, yes, he wanted this put in the grapevine. I wouldn't have taken that decision on my own.
So you printed it out for us to consider?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
I wouldn't have made that decision, and
Right, that's the answer to the question.
I'm not sure what you're saying, there's something else, but yeah, that's it.
Yes.
So all in favour of being published in the Great Round then? Those in favour?
Is this with a reply?
We have to put a reply,
Yes.
and we have to address some of these issues,
Yeah.
of which Alex is making, and you know, we don't disagree with all this double taxation, which we've said before. But if we want our village to look nice, clean, tidy, the churchyard and the play corner and everywhere, which is public places, people to access, the only way to keep on top of that is obviously for us to have, we, you know, with the preset money, to spend some of that money on doing that job. And these are public places for people to go to. And as I say, I don't disagree with this double taxation. We've had this conversation before, sat around this table.
Where does it stop, though? Where do we stop?
Well, we stop when we have an allocated pot of money, and we sit around this table and we allocate where we want to spend that money. And we can only spend what we have. We can't spend anything that we haven't got.
Yeah, we won't, I mean, part we go by taking things on. i.e. the churchyard, the big
It is.
point.
It is. But we were donating to the churchyard.
We gave grants to the church, we gave grants to the village hall.
Yeah. It's just us as a committee that we decide on where we want to decide on how we divide that money up.
Well, I think that's the point, isn't it? That we need to look carefully at what we do, where we do put money and where we don't, and we sort of make sure it is a good case, so that we give it a good hard look. I think that is the point. Everyone who asks us for money, we give it a good hard look. I think the issue of the churchyard, the fact that it could be a closed churchyard, and the Eastern Yorkshire Council could take it on. I don't know the detail of that. I think Steve knows more than I do. That one maybe would be something that we could have actually asked Eastern Yorkshire Council to talk to us about and see if it is an issue, if we could get rid of the cost of that. You know, if it closed the church. Yeah, if it closed the church, it's maybe not as simple as it is, but I don't think certainly as a parish council, I don't fully understand that situation. And I think it would be helpful if each of the council to look at it and to advise us on the best course of action.
But obviously, sorry.
You see, Mr. Chairman, talking about the closing of the churchyard, there's about 20 graves there that have been bought for people to be buried in when they well, we don't know how long that's going to be. So how can it be closed if those are still there to be buried in?
You would assume that would be fulfilled.
If I could have closed to any further, you just close it as a not maintain what someone's buried people. What I can gather.
If I may, then yes, there are graves be purchased. The church is closed to new graves. If the church decides they want to close the graveyard, they're the ones that have to make that decision. The parish council can't make that decision. Then they can close the graveyard and take out a faculty that says it's closed, but these 20 or whatever graves will be used in the future. So that isn't an issue. Another issue you brought up when it was discussed was that looking at the mess that the East Riding have made of grass cutting in the village, does the village want the graveyard to look like the rest of the village in terms of grass cutting? And that's, I think, another reason why you wanted to take it on.
Into the graveyard now, it's as tidy now as it's been for a long time. A lot of those unsightly bushes have been moved and parts of trees cut. And when I go down for a walk around there, I think it looks tidy. I don't know what other people think.
Well, we did discuss all that, didn't we? We decided that we had the equipment, we had the man.
Yeah.
We didn't know how much longer these items was going to carry on being able to do all these jobs. They're getting shorter and shorter of money. They're doing, less and less grass cutting. We decided that, we had the machine and we had a man who could do the job. We would just pay the extra and do it ourselves, didn't we?
We just weren't paying out the grant to the church.
That's right.
We're just using that money to pay our man.
I think we need to address the double taxation side of things.
Well,
Can we go back to East Riding Council and say, look, we're doing this. This is our regular thing, and this is how much it's costing us. And we have that money because obviously you're not doing that. So try that. So you're trying again.
But there isn't a double taxation issue, excuse me, with the graveyard.
No.
Because the church owns the graveyard, it's not closed.
But elsewhere in the village. And
the only other place in the village, well, I can't think of anywhere in the village that the parish council cuts grass that would be double taxation at the moment. Because the play area, or the playing field, the only reason the parish council do a little bit of the playing field is because Harrison, forgotten his last name, Paul Harrison, mentioned to somebody, perhaps Peter Wiles, that the machinery they use to cut just on the side wouldn't go in easily. So because Peter is cutting the play area, which you're going to adopt anyway from the 1st of March, he said, look, while I'm doing that, I'll run up and down, it won't take long. And it was almost a favour, if that's the right word, because it was difficult for the soccer team to do it.
Yeah, well, that kept retaining,
and that was why that happened. And that isn't double taxation because, again, the village hall own that. It's not owned by the East Riding. And is there anywhere else where the East Riding own that parish council cut? I don't think there is, actually. And that's what double taxation is.
I think there's some reference to double taxation here.
Litter is a different matter. Sorry, you're talking about grass there.
But it isn't owned by the parish council, it's owned by the village hall, so...
Fine.
Yeah, so we're paying for the village hall, so he's going to be
To
aware of what
be
we're
fair,
doing.
I mean, we've put the playfields for years for grass, apart from that one the buildings there. So that's no cost to the village whatsoever. It's a village hall or parish council.
And why the football couldn't be allowed these shows?
Where they couldn't, well...
That's the same with the churchyard.
I think we had to pay them once because our lawnmower was broken.
Who else would be paying for putting the control of grass there? The playing field's got something. That's not the parish council's responsibility.
Nobody. We do.